Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening, Kizaru said as his right leg completely lit up. He somersaulted and smashed his leg into Jigen's head. Upon seeing this, the other executives became alarmed. Brother Jigen. Jack couldn't help but shout. Damn it, I let my guard down. King cursed. This time, the mission of guarding Jigen fell to him, but he got carried away by his speech and lowered his guard. Moreover, someone like him couldn't match Kizaru's reaction speed. He could only watch as Kizaru's kick descended towards Jigen's head. Ready to decapitate him. Chapter 113, Jigen's Show, 2, Not Good. Kaido tried to intervene, but Sengoku and Garp stopped him. Everyone was agitated. Interestingly, except for Ulti and Page 1. Serves him right for attracting so much attention, always acting so cool, isn't he ashamed? Ulti crossed her arms with an annoyed look. As men, we like to attract attention, you know. Page 1 said calmly. On the other hand, Jigen smirked mockingly at Kizaru. Just as his illuminated leg was about to touch his head, a blue barrier completely surrounded Jigen. Boom. Kizaru's leg collided with a barrier for a few seconds before pushing Kizaru back. Sudden. However, he was surprised to see Jigen blink towards him and strike his glasses with his hockey-armored fist. Boom. Kizaru couldn't do anything. Right now. That collision had just left his leg numb, completely unresponsive. Not to mention the surprise he felt at the speed displayed by the boy. Boom. Everyone looked in horror as the figure of Kizaru, the fastest admiral, crashed into one of the many cells on the 6th floor. This power, a devil fruit? Sengoku squinted his eyes, he had no words for this. Jigen not only managed to push back Kizaru but also successfully struck him. A marine admiral who even used the highest level of armament hockey in that attack. All to prevent Jigen from accidentally surviving. However, he was repelled and counterattacked successfully. You guys are really fierce. Jigen said as the barrier around him disappeared. How does it feel to be hit, Kizaru? I'm sure you haven't tasted it in a long time. Jigen openly and shamelessly mocked. How scary. This really hurt, you know. Kizaru struggled to get up, looked at his completely broken glasses, and sighed in annoyance as usual. Hee, let me tell you, you're not the only one studying lineage with old Vegapunk, I really enjoy researching that branch too. Jigen's comment caught Kizaru's attention. Kizaru deeply evaluated his words. You're someone very, very dangerous, you know. Kizaru didn't say anything else, fearing to reveal top-secret information. On the other hand, the sudden increase in Jigen's power is not a devil fruit, it's just a package of 2 abilities he obtained as a reward from the system, along with a reward earned by collecting Kaido's blood. Barrier LV1, creates an invincible barrier around you for only 5 seconds. Cooldown time, 5 minutes. Range, 2 meters. Note, as you level up, the duration of the barrier, cooldown time, and range will greatly improve. Conqueror's Explosion LV1, creates an explosion of Conqueror's hockey at the highest level to stun your enemies for only 10 seconds. Cooldown time, 5 minutes. Range, 20 meters. Note, as you level up, the cooldown time and range will greatly improve. Dragon's Arrogance, increases all your stats by 500% for a limited amount of time when you are in extreme danger or cornered. Note, as your physique becomes stronger, you will be able to have this ability activated for a much longer time. This third one acted more like a buff, an extremely broken one. It even increased the performance of all 3 types of hockey. But due to Jigen's physique, he could only have this ability for about 3 seconds. Truly regrettable. As for Jigen, he was not foolish, nor did he seek death. Naturally, he did not dare to come to Impel Down, knowing that an ambush awaited them, without having enough power. With a smug smile, he activated his second technique. Everyone, I propose something to you. You can join the Beast Pirates and help us overthrow the tyranny of the world government. However, not everyone is eligible for this objective. All of you are highly dangerous and capable criminals, so if you want to escape from here, you have to kill each other. Only those who survive will qualify to join the Beast Pirates and escape. Sengoku's anger reached a new level when he heard this kind of atrocity. However, he didn't have time to react as a destructive power collided with him. His head throbbed heavily as his vision blurred. Not only him, Garp, Aokiji, Kizaru, Akainu. Everyone within the range of the hockey explosion fell to one knee. Even Kaido, Big Mom, and all the Beast Pirates, without exception, momentarily felt dizzy. Jigen strutted in front of Sengoku as he took Jack's key from an unconscious jailer and freed Jack. Approximately 10 seconds passed and everyone returned to normal. They saw that Jigen had the enormous Jack on one shoulder and the scrawny Cracker on the other, while he tightly held a distinctive prisoner by the ankle, dragging him ruthlessly across the floor, obviously with the intention of taking him away. We'll see each other soon, Sengoku, Garp. I never say goodbye to people. Taking Luffy's words to heart, Jigen passed through the arbitrary door with an unprecedented calmness. As if he had just finished playing ball and entered his house to take a bath and eat, and then go to bed. While everyone recovered, the prisoners who were also affected by the hockey explosion remembered Jigen's earlier words. Without thinking twice, a fierce battle broke out in every cell of Impel Down. In a certain cell, Jinbai, who had just regained consciousness, said, "Ace, how about we join the Beast Pirates? Right now the old man is at war with Kaido, we can act as spies in Wano." Jinbai said. But his statement was met with silence. Ace. He had no choice but to look to the side. Upon seeing that he was the only one in this cell, his fish-like eyes widened completely. Ace. He suddenly shouted, but due to the noise of the prisoners, he couldn't even hear himself. Could it be? Damn it, Kaido. You really put on a show in Impel Down today. Sengoku looked at Kaido and Big Mom standing together and cursed. Worororo. Sengoku, I have to say that Linlin and I were just spectators in my subordinate's show this time. I have to say that I was greatly impressed. I always worried that Jigen, someone so talented, had no ambition and only cared about providing us with new technologies. But hearing his ambition to know the entire history of the world and to end the enormous burden weighing on this world, I feel more at ease about it. Kaido swung his enormous mace with joy. Mama. Mama. Kaido, that brat knows you better than you know yourself, and look at the little gift he left you. Big Mom was dazzled by Jigen's plan to recruit new members. Even that guy got motivated. Mama. Mama, I feel so old seeing someone like Jigen taking the reins in this era. I see the indomitable spirit of the captain in that brat, how incredible. Big Mom was also in a good mood. Especially when she saw someone like Bullet getting excited to join the Beast Pirates. Bullet effortlessly dealt with the small ants that were with him in the cell and stepped out. Brushing off his hands, he said, Kaido, Linlin, don't get it twisted, I just want to cooperate with you, I have no intention of becoming your lackey. Worororo. Bullet, you are certainly welcome, but you have to show your sincerity at this moment. I really hate people who boast too much and don't act. Bullet understood Kaido's meaning and nodded. Well, after all, it's been a while since I had a good battle, my hands are itching a bit. Bullet positioned himself next to Kaido and Big Mom and smiled ferociously at Sengoku, Garp, and the three admirals. Chapter 114, War, 1. Seeing Bullet standing beside Big Mom and Kaido, Akainu couldn't help but roar. This is Impel Down, Marine territory. Do you think you can do whatever you want here? At this moment, hearing the loud voices of the people around him, along with Doflamingo's sudden attack that had just hit him hard, this fiery admiral was furious. The rolling magma began to flow out of his body, and the magma in his body condensed into his fist, and then he directly raised his hand and attacked Kaido and the others, Daifunka. In an instant, the hot magma in Akainu's fist shot out like a cannonball, turning into a huge fist of magma enveloped in a wave of heat, and the momentum was extreme. On the opposite side, Kaido sneered. He didn't care at all about Akainu's attack. He turned his head, looked at everyone surrounding him, and said, Who among you wants to shoot? I'll give you a chance. King stepped forward, intending to attack, touched the air cannon on his finger, but at that moment, a figure jumped one step ahead. He saw Kitakuri running forward, raised his hand, and fired the air cannon. Immediately, the powerful force of the air cannon rushed towards Akainu's magma fist, and soon the two sides made contact. The attacks from both sides only stagnated for a few seconds, and Kitakuri's air cannon knocked down Akainu's great eruption. There were bursts of exclamations all around. The attack isn't over yet. Look! Akainu gritted his teeth, extremely annoyed, as the air cannon attack continued charging towards him. However, his attack also consumed most of the air cannon's power, so it finally dissipated with his magma-wrapped punch. By the time, Kitakuri turned his head towards King and said, This is the first time I've experienced an air cannon. I have to say it's really incredible. It makes you addicted to this power. Indeed. This made Katakuri excited. He had always wanted to try it before, but never had the chance. This time he found an opportunity. King didn't care too much about Katakuri stealing the spotlight. Everyone around them was impressed. After the air cannon collided with the Admiral's attack, they all realized how terrifying and outrageous it was. With this thing, what kind of combat strength do you need? Just bombard it and it's done. The people around them were once again refreshing their understanding of the air cannon. On Kaido's side, seeing a Kainu fall again, everyone cheered. Morale was at its peak. Meanwhile, Big Mom, Bullet, and Kaido were facing off against Sengoku and Garp respectively. Kaido was extremely excited. He raised his hand with his characteristic mace and roared, "Kill all these marine dogs, a new era has begun, one where the world government will crumble to its foundations." After roaring, Kaido fired a cannon towards the upper floors. Beside him, everyone responded. Everyone equipped with air cannons began attacking indiscriminately. The audience was in an uproar and voices of surprise could be heard everywhere. The expressions of all the higher-ranking members of the Marines dramatically changed and they were all terrified to the extreme. Do they already have so many air cannons? Sengoku's forehead was still sweating. This air cannon is really like a toy. It's too outrageous to be able to manufacture so many just after its development. Garp simply felt that it was a big problem. It's really scary. What are we going to do? They're just attacking and pushing us back, and we don't have many Senzubans left. Kizaru's words this time were truly shocking, and he truly felt fear in his heart. Okainu's face was extremely grim, he gritted his teeth, clenched his fists, and the presence of the air cannons made him feel powerless and furious. Aokiji was equally solemn and was thinking of countermeasures in his mind. The great prisoners in the prison also felt horror. After seeing so many air cannons, Bullet was stunned. He wondered if they really needed his help at this moment. But soon his heart became even more excited. The more, the better, the more powerful, the better. As long as he can work together with Kaido, he will naturally have access to this technology. Red Earl was deeply shocked when he saw so many air cannons. "I can't understand how the fighting style has become like this." Shiryu murmured in shock. What a joke. The expressions of the great prisoners were different, all of them were shocked by the lights of the air cannons that almost blinded them. Ha 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 ha. Kill those Marines. The prisoners were delighting in the heated battle. Under Kaido's command, they all fired air cannons with stubborn smiles. The first two shots naturally targeted the leaders, Kaido and Big Mom. A terrifying force swept through the not-too-wide hallway like a hurricane. This horrified many of the great prisoners, reinforcing their idea of joining this alliance. Bullet, who had just joined, couldn't help but swallow his saliva and muttered. "I'm afraid Roger back then couldn't withstand this attack so easily. It's really fierce." However, compared to these great prisoners, the Marines who were facing the attacks of these two New World emperors were horrified. Under the deterrence of the air cannons, the Marine soldiers couldn't help but tremble. Some people wanted to bombard with heavy artillery, but they were horrified to find that their hands and feet didn't obey at all out of fear of death. Sengoku's face was terrifying as he shouted. "Everyone below the rank of Vice Admiral, retreat." This cunning general can no longer remain calm. If they don't stop these attacks, the casualties will be numerous. Garp and Sengoku looked at each other. They had a look of mutual understanding and rushed towards the attack. "Galaxy first." Garp roared, his fist completely darkened and he smashed it against the barrage of cannons. Chapter 115, War 2, Garp and Sengoku attacked Kaido's air cannon, with Sengoku enveloped in a golden light. Meanwhile, Aokiji, Kizaru, and Akainu attempted to block Big Mom's cannon. After the two sides collided, a terrifying force suddenly exploded and dispersed in all directions. The torrent of power shook the entire underwater prison. The absolute power was astonishing. Bullet held his breath. Red Earl's scalp went numb as he felt the power unfolding in that confrontation. Kaido and Big Mom unleashed devastating attacks to surprise the prisoners. Sengoku and Garp barely blocked the attack, leaving them almost breathless. And for the Admiral's side, it was easier against Big Mom. However, the attack was not yet over, and the attacks from Katakuri, King, and Doflamingo were activated one after another. Immediately, Magellan, Momousagi, T-Dolphin, Ghost Spider, Momonga, and many other veteran vice admirals took measures to resist. Like a violent tremor, after the death of a certain vice admiral and the fatal injury of Vice Admiral Ghost Spider, they finally managed to block all the electromagnetic discharges. Fortunately, there are Senzubans on the Marine side, allowing them to withstand the enemy's first wave of attacks without any losses. This made the atmosphere of the Marines extremely dignified, and everyone's faces were extremely grim. This technology is too outrageous. How can we deal with something like this? Yes, how should this fight be fought? I can't fight at all. Anyone who rushes in will die. The low-ranking Marines around were shocked by the shots, while at the same time having little hope for the battle. Don't hesitate. At that moment, Sengoku, who was standing at the front, roared. The world needs us, and once we give up, the world will be finished. No matter how dominant this air cannon is, we cannot fall. As the fleet admiral, Sengoku must stand up when he sees low morale. Since they chose to become Marines, even if they do it for the desire in their hearts and the belief in protecting the world, they have no choice but to defend that belief. Sengoku's words can be considered to have undoubtedly stimulated people's emotions and helped them regain their morale. Soon, the soldiers' hands were no longer trembling, and doubt no longer filled their eyes, but instead became firm and filled with emotion. Charge. Sengoku made the decision. Go. Courageous shouts were heard, and the soldiers began to charge. The roar immediately filled the 6th floor of the entire underwater prison. Sengoku transformed into a golden Buddha to lead the way for everyone, and Akainu also immediately started the fight. Upon seeing this, the Beast Alliance began to charge. Bang. Boom. Artillery after artillery was fired towards the Marines. The two sides fought each other. This prison that has been in this world for countless years is experiencing its first ever war. It has initiated its first large-scale war. No matter how the war ends in the end, this is already making history. This shows that the world government has begun to become unstable. A total of 100 cannons were fired. Although it was said that both the height and width were enormous, for a battlefield of this size it was too small and it was difficult to use fists and feet. As the minutes passed, both sides were already injured. In such a battle, these low-strength individuals did not have time to use senzu bins, they were covered by the new artillery and blown to pieces. Sengoku and Garp are the first to entangle Kaido, while Big Mom is in charge of the admirals, and the other executives are in charge of the vice-admirals. Although they were not rivals for them, they deserved the rank they were given. Especially Jian. This war has become the main topic of heavy artillery. Under such bombardment from both sides, even the prisoners also suffered. All the materials in the prison were made of Kairosaki, and it was difficult to destroy the prison in a short period of time. Bang! The shock wave from a shot swept through the prison and some weak prisoners died. In a short period of time, the number of prisoners killed was greater than that of both sides. After all, the battling sides had senzu bins to recover, but the prisoners naturally did not. Only strong figures managed to survive. And that's what Jigen wanted. Jigen was not interested in small people. He only wanted to recruit those with bounties of over 200 million. Is this the senzu bin? Bullet unconsciously looked towards King, Kaido's subordinate. However, at that moment, King was still focused on the battle and ignored him. It was the first time Bullet had seen the defiant effect of the senzu bean, and it was astonishing. Shit. We're the ones suffering the most casualties. Bastard. Can't you see that you're shooting at us? Ah. The prisoners on the 6th floor began to suffer heavy casualties, which made them feel greatly aggrieved. The war has entered a heated stage and Aokiji is dealing with Big Mom alongside Kizaru and Akainu. After the three of them joined forces to resist Big Mom's air cannon again, Aokiji decided to retaliate. He crouched down and slid to a distance, then squinted his eyes slightly and whispered. Ice Age. Chapter 116, Hori, 1, Aokiji took action. From the ground where his palm touched, the hissing ice began to spread and everything was frozen. The prisoners in the prison were frightened and fled, and some who were running slowly suddenly turned into ice sculptures, then falling to the ground, they shattered. The ice quickly spread towards the location of King and Katakuri. Aokiji intended to take out these two powerhouses first. However, at that moment, a sound of breaking air was heard, accompanied by a terrible wave of heat. Aokiji couldn't help but look and saw that King at that moment had taken on a hybrid form and his arms had transformed into double-edged wings. At the same time, he was engulfed in flames. The wave of heat rolled over Aokiji's eyes and began to merge, and the cut completely halted Aokiji's attack. Aokiji couldn't help but frown. King. On the other side, King sneered, raised his arm and aimed the air cannon at Aokiji, and Aokiji's voice suddenly tensed and became extremely dignified. If he fires, it is estimated that it will be difficult to resist. Previously, Doflamingo nearly incapacitated Akainu. However, just as Aokiji was about to dodge it, he saw that King had no intention of attacking, which surprised him. What is he up to? Just when he thought he wouldn't attack, King's air cannon activated, and Aokiji only realized why King didn't attack immediately. This air cannon can interfere with observation haki. He waited until he relaxed his guard before launching an attack. Immediately, the air cannon shattered Aokiji's body into pieces of ice and fell to the ground. The pieces that fell to the ground began to reassemble into Aokiji's body. Although it wasn't a fatal attack, there was blood at the corner of his mouth. He took a breath and couldn't help but say, "Yes. This is really complicated." At that moment, a golden flash appeared next to Aokiji, and Kizaru said with a twisted mouth, "Q's, support the others with your ability, I will play with this guy." In a battle like this, the power of the ice fruit model, Frost Human Devil Fruit, is essential. The two looked at each other. Aokiji didn't hesitate and rejoined the battle, leaving the matter here to Kizaru. At that moment, Kizaru couldn't help but smile and look at King. "No more nonsense," Kizaru jumped. The golden flash in his body burst into a bright light, and it was like a terrifying star descending on King. Yasukani no Magatama. With his characteristic pose, Kizaru began to shoot countless golden flashes, and these flashes carried out indiscriminate attacks against the pirates below. However, Kitakuri, able to vaguely predict the future, created a machi wall and blocked these attacks. Kizaru was surprised by this, thinking that Big Mom's brat has become much stronger than the last time they fought. And only a few days had passed. But then he thought about the supposed time room mentioned by Red Earl, and it all made sense to Kizaru. After resolving the crisis, Kitakuri raised his hand and fired an air cannon at him. Seeing this, Kizaru immediately used the advantage of his fruit to escape the range of the air cannon. The shots of both admirals were blocked and, at that moment, a terrifying wave of heat entered and a giant magma dog with an aura enveloping everything ran frantically towards Doflamingo. However, Doflamingo managed to survive with the help of his fruit's awakening. Taking a senzu bean, his expression recovered. Onigashima Jigen arrived with Jack, Cracker, and Ace in tow. Dropping the unconscious Ace to the ground, he looked at Jack and Cracker. "You can take what you need from the warehouse and return to the battle. As for me, I still have too many things to investigate." Jigen gestured with his hand and took Ace to the laboratory. "Wow, I feel sorry for that kid, being a subject of the laboratory." Seeing Jigen's back, Jack couldn't help but say, "The way you say that, it seems like you've been through it." Cracker said mockingly as he removed the rest of the chains from his body. "I'd rather not talk about it." Jack remained silent on the subject. Cracker ignored him as he ran to the laboratory to equip himself with senzu bins, capsules, and artillery. Jack followed behind. In the laboratory, Jigen threw the unconscious Ace into a small test tube. Automatic machines with syringes began to extract blood from him. After taking enough blood from Ace's body, another special machine began the process of injecting the blood from a test tube. Upon completing the process, a green liquid substance flooded the test tube containing Ace. He was fitted with an oxygen apparatus and Ace's body began to float in the middle of the green substance. Jigen showed a satisfied smile as he watched the small test tube containing Ace's blood. It was a success with the mythical zone fruits. "I hope the logias don't give me any more headaches," Jigen murmured as he walked deeper into the laboratory. An arbitrary door suddenly appeared in front of Jigen and he entered it. "Capital of Flowers, Mansion of Oiran Kamorisaki Hori-sama, it's truly incredible, I feel so powerful." Kyoshiro, a member of the Kazuki clan infiltrated in Orashi's forces, exclaimed at his appearance. He had the same appearance as a member of the Tobi Rappo. Who's who, in his hybrid form. "Of course, you forget who gave you that power." A voice manifested not far from the two figures. Jigen made an appearance through the arbitrary door. "Ah, husband." Hori hurriedly ran towards Jigen and embraced him lovingly. Jigen caressed Hori's head with a smile as he said, "Hey, I told you not to call me that, it feels weird." For some reason, women in Wano traditionally called their partner husband if they had lost their virginity to them. Hori was no exception. Jigen is someone from Earth, although he didn't remember his entire life. In fact, he was slowly forgetting those precious memories, but even when he got married, his partner and he never called each other that. And it really felt strange to him. Even though he was a full-fledged North American who married a Japanese woman in Tokyo, they didn't have that custom of calling each other husband and wife. In fact, he called her fatty. Something she didn't like. Dispelling those thoughts, Jigen kissed Hori's head affectionately. "Sister LT doesn't call you that, so I decided to call you that for life." Hori smiled, showing her beautiful dimples. Chapter 117, Hori, 2, Denjiro, for his part, almost vomited at the display of affection between these two. "You're coming too often, they might get suspicious, you know," Denjiro said with a grimace on his face. Jigen, on the other hand, just gave him a casual glance. "Do you want to lose your arm again for being insolent?" Upon hearing this, Denjiro's body trembled inconsistently. Remembering the first time this guy met him and his lady. He tried to cut his head off in one stroke, but unfortunately, it was he who lost an arm in just one stroke. Denjiro did not respond, but Hori, who knew that Denjiro still did not completely trust Jigen, eased the situation. "Do you want me to prepare something for you to eat?" she asked lovingly. Jigen nodded as he said, I like it when you act like a good wife. Jigen grabbed Hori's soft buttocks boldly. Something that didn't bother Hori at all. On the contrary, if Denjiro hadn't came to report something, she would have completely unleashed her inner Kazuki. After Hori ran to the kitchen, Jigen and Denjiro were left alone in the mansion's living room. Why are you helping us? Denjiro suddenly asked. Don't get it wrong, I'm not just helping you, but all of Wano. I'm not so cold as to see all these people suffering and stand by idly. Jigen replied calmly. I still don't believe you'll betray Kaido. Denjiro twisted his mouth in pure disdain. He still didn't completely trust Jigen. The identity of his lady is too important to trust a stranger. Who said I would betray my captain? I'm just accumulating achievements to become the new shogun of Wano. You. Denjiro almost lost control of his emotions at Jigen's insolent words. However, he didn't dare to act. After all, he knows what the young man in front of him is capable of. Tell me, Denjiro, do you really think that by defeating Orochi, you can recover Wano? Don't be foolish. Orochi is just a puppet that Kaido controls to deal with Wano's affairs. Kaido's strength is something you can't even imagine. Even you together as red scabbards can't put him in a sober state in a fight. Jigen threw cold water on Denjiro. Looking at Hori's impassive face as she set the table, he said. I'm not interested in ruling a country. It's just that there's no other alternative. Naturally, when my captain's time comes or when he gets bored of this world, I'll pass the mandate to that brat. That day is not too far away. Besides, my ambition goes beyond being the shogun of this small country. Jigen mentioned with boredom. Denjiro's face relaxed a little, but still kept his guard up at all times. To Jigen, this didn't matter, especially from someone as weak as Denjiro. It's a shame as a swordsman to not even be able to land a solid blow on Kaido. Even with external help. Look at Zoro, he made Kaido dodge his attack, which is unusual since Kaido likes to take attacks directly from people he despises. Showing them how weak they are compared to him. Not to mention Zoro's Ashura. Alright, stop arguing. You can come and eat. Hori intervened with a pout. The best thing you can do is get used to your new power and continue freeing samurais captive by Orochi. I will continue to provide help to make them strong warriors. Jigen stood up leaving these words. Denjiro, on the other hand, went outside to take a breath. Forgive Denjiro, he was the most affected by my father's death. Hori, standing aside, said with a sad expression. Hori, I told you before that these customs of yours get on my nerves. Sit down and eat too. Jigen said with amusement at seeing Hori standing aside waiting to eat like a good wife. Hori had no choice but to sit down and eat with Jigen as well. Did you find out anything about my brother? Hori asked. Jigen smiled. That's exactly why I came. Your brother is fine, I know exactly where he and Kiman are, I just haven't had time to go look for him. Jigen said as he ate. Oh, I'm so glad. Hori smiled sweetly at the news of her brother. Besides that, I came to take you to Z. Although the Mink tribe doesn't get involved in political matters, they won't refuse to help. In fact, they're also waiting for the destined day. I just need you to come with me. It will be easier and less problematic if they believe it's coming from you. Jigen explained. Hori naturally wouldn't refuse this. Okay, I can ask for a few days off. Good, that's not bad. By the way, what about the poison? Jigen asked. Upon hearing Jigen's question, Hori smiled maliciously. It's already taking effect. Orochi is starting to weaken, the consumption of magic beans is increasing, and yet, it doesn't relieve his pain. Hori said. Jigen nodded at this. Just as I designed it. It's a poison that becomes stronger the more you search for an antidote. There will come a day when the consumption of beans will be astronomical, and he will have no choice but to die miserably. Before that, I will create an opportunity for you to finish him off yourself. Jigen explained. Upon hearing Jigen's words, Hori became excited, eagerly awaiting that day. She approached Jigen and hugged him. I was really lucky to fall in love with you. Don't worry, Sister Elty and I will treat you well, and I hope there isn't another one out there. Hori's face darkened as she said this. 2 is my limit, don't worry, there won't be any more. Jigen smiled ironically. To be honest, he had planned to stay with Alti, but the heart wants what it wants. A fierce woman and a gentle one. Sadistic and submissive in bed. What more could he ask for? Can we do it quickly now that Denjiro isn't here? Hori asked. Jigen's hands suddenly became restless. Oh. Wait. No. Several minutes later. The atmosphere heated up in the mansion. Jigen loved how submissive Hori was. Accepting everything he had to offer without asking for more or less intensity. Moaning and moaning with extreme pleasure. Denjiro, who had gone out to clear his head, blushed as he clenched his teeth in anger. It didn't bother him that his lady had chosen Jigen. After all, it's her business and he has no right to interfere. What bothered him was that they were engaging in such vulgar acts without being married yet. She's the daughter of a shogun, she has to uphold her identity. You damn bastard, you're going to kill her. He thought as he heard the loud skin-on-skin blows and moans even from outside. Impel down the war, now senseless, continued. Sengoku suddenly startled and shouted. Stop those prisoners from escaping. It would be very problematic if the prisoners escaped and joined the beast pirates. However, Kaido paid special attention to this. Kaido, what are you trying to do? Sengoku felt breathless as he saw Kaido protecting a large number of highly dangerous prisoners. Sengoku, they are now my subordinates, naturally I won't allow you to kill them. He said and took out his arbitrary door that he had inside a universal capsule. They can breathe when they arrive at Onigashima, Jigen and Jack will receive them. I haven't had enough fun yet, so they'll have to wait for the welcome banquet, exclamation mark. Kaido raised his club while protecting the arbitrary door that connected to the interior of his castle in Onigashima. Chapter 118, Desperate, 1, Kaido looked at Sengoku defiantly. Opposite him, Okainu clenched his teeth in anger. Damn pirates, just because you rely on this guy's technology, you behave so arrogantly. Okainu's magnetic voice made many prisoners behind Kaido tremble. Not only was Okainu upset, Sengoku was hyperventilating with anger. Okainu, who was already furious among the crowd, lost his temper and raised his hand to use Meteor Volcano. Even if the corridor is large, it seems small in the face of Okainu's large-scale aerial attack. Countless magma accumulated in the dome, burning the prison ceiling, and then turned into fists and fell, crashing indiscriminately against the pirates and prisoners. This scene reminded the beast pirates that an admiral was still an admiral of the Marines. The terrifying magma caused a lot of damage, but most of the pirates had 2 to 3 senzubins with them. So they immediately healed themselves. This made the pirates shiver and dance with excitement one by one, mocking Akainu. The greatest combat power of the Marines is nothing more than that. Ha ha ha, that's right. It seems extremely fierce, but after a single operation, the damage is equal to 0. Okainu, continue, we have plenty of beans, we're not afraid. At this moment, respect and admiration for Jigen reached its peak. Being able to withstand such an attack from an admiral and survive was never on anyone's agenda. They could die with pride. They could face the fiercest admiral and mock him. All of this is thanks to Jigen. It is his technology that qualifies them, and they had never thought of that before. Now they have, and it excites them so much that they continue to mock the Marines. The pirates were delighted, but the prisoners in the prison couldn't help but complain. Okainu's attack is truly powerful and it is a large-scale indiscriminate attack. Once it reaches its surroundings, the damage it causes is intolerable. Even the powerful figures felt helpless and depressed. Red URL, Brindy, Shiryu. These people had to endure the consequences of the fight between the two sides. This undoubtedly angered them. After all, they had no intention of escaping in the midst of this disaster, let alone joining Kaido. Bastards, can you go fight somewhere else? Red Earl cursed angrily. We haven't done anything, don't make us change our minds. Burnt Eye also shouted in complaint. The prisoners could only shout in grievance. At the same time, they deeply realized the importance of super disaster technology on the current battlefield. If they have the opportunity to escape, they must acquire this technology, otherwise they will not be able to survive in this era. The battle between the Marines and the Beast Pirates Alliance has reached its climax. Even with Senzubins, the corpses have started to pile up. Whether pirates or Marines, in the fierce battle, sometimes they don't have time to take care of their comrades. Among the crowd, Big Mom was the craziest. In such an exciting battle, she had already lost her senses. Big Mom began using her air cannon to attack indiscriminately, aiming in all directions. Although Kaido shouted that he enjoyed this type of battle, he was not as crazy as her. The objective was clear, the best Marine. Big Mom's bombardment caused suffering to both the Marines and the prisoners. Due to the air cannon interfering with observation hockey, no one could predict which direction Big Mom would attack, and it was difficult for the higher-ranking Marines to withstand them all. An air cannon exploded among the Marine soldiers. A large number of people fell and died from a single shot. Several vice admirals were also included, although most of these vice admirals were recently promoted, but their power was still impressive. The other shot was aimed towards a prison cell, and a terrifying force directly opened a large hole in the Seastone prison. But when Sengoku looked inside the prison, he saw that these prisoners were already dead, and even if they weren't dead, they were directly disabled and dying. Giant Karate. Suddenly, a terrifying water pressure shot out from Jinbei's palms towards a strategic angle of the air cannon collision. With great effort, he managed to deflect and save himself from the terrifying attack. The prison is quite lively. Jinbei couldn't help but comment. Seeing this, Sengoku quickly thought and threw a small bag of senzubins towards Jinbei. Jinbei took the bag with a nod, took out a small bin, and ate it. In an instant, he felt his energy and exhaustion return to their peak. Although I don't like you guys, this is a really urgent situation. Jinbei justified himself to avoid creating any misunderstandings regarding his position as a former warlord. As the battle intensified more and more, the Marines went from being surrounded to being on the defensive. The air cannon was too powerful. Now what? Sengoku asked solemnly. The air cannon on the other side is too powerful, we can't suppress it at all. The morale of the Marines began to decline, and even powerhouses like Jian, these vice admirals, felt a bit desperate and couldn't fight at all. The supply of senzubins had already been completely depleted. Sengoku reflected, gritted his teeth, and made a decision. Tsuru. He turned his head to look at Tsuru, the chief of staff of the Marines, and Tsuru nodded. Although Sengoku didn't say anything, things had already been prepared before the performance. On the opposite side, Kaido and Big Mom sneered when they saw this. What's the matter, Sengoku? Do you want to keep looking for support? Big Mom, who was standing beside them, laughed senselessly and said indifferently. However, the amount of support remains the same. In our eyes, they are just shrimp soldiers and crab generals. We will kill as many as we want. Saying that, Big Mom raised the air cannon on her middle finger again, aimed at the pitiful state of the Marines, and fired without any remorse. Sengoku and Garp wanted to stop her when a loud sound of rupture in the air rang out, and at the same time, a tyrannical conqueror's haki surged. As soon as this surge appeared, both Sengoku and Garp were instantly filled with joy. A distinguished figure appeared in everyone's sight. As sturdy as an oak. Commander of the world government's military forces, Kong. Kong appeared on the stage at lightning speed. Facing Big Mom's air cannon attack, Kong threw a punch infused with pure haki. This punch had unmatched power, and a black thunder roared amidst the collision, as if the air had been destroyed. With a single blow, Big Mom's air cannon attack was instantly shattered by Kong's punch. Kong raised his fist and said to the two emperors in front of him. Can I, the shrimp soldier and crab general, be in your eyes? Chapter 119, Desperate. 2. When the Marines began to lose ground and were on the verge of losing control, Kong, the commander-in-chief of the Marine and the world government's armies, appeared. He shattered Big Mom's attack with a single blow. Kaido and Big Mom were pleasantly surprised, they didn't expect this turn of events. They made Kong mobilize. He is one of the hidden cards of the world government. A character who is given too much importance. However, Kaido didn't hesitate and didn't respond to Kong's words. He raised his hand towards Kong and it was his turn to strike. Ah! Seeing Kaido attack him, Kong mocked. Is it possible that I haven't appeared before the eyes of the world for too long and you have forgotten my name? Kaido. With that said, Kong swung his fist again, facing the attack instead of avoiding it. Today, I will make you remember it well. He said with a mocking expression on his face. Kaido's attack was difficult to withstand for both Sengoku and Garp, but Kong broke it once again with a single blow. In the midst of the battle, everyone's eyes widened as they saw this scene. What? Many recognized this character, but most did not. They didn't know what this old man was capable of. Kong in the front did not stop after once again stopping the attack. Instead, he ran and jumped towards Kaido with a mad smile and struck him. Kong's fist was like a thick elephant leg crashing into Kaido in an irresistible gesture. Before Kaido could react, he was struck by Kong's fist. His whole body took a heavy blow and went flying. When Big Mom saw this, she couldn't help but twist her lips. Kaido, we are in such a serious moment, how can you take the attack head-on? Kaido didn't dodge it because he couldn't, instead, he wanted to experience the extent of the power of this remnant of history, just like himself. On the other hand, Big Mom had already become addicted to the air cannon. And she recharged it with her haki to the maximum and fired it at Kong again. Kong saw the black hole pointing at him and laughed fearlessly. Lin. You're really weird. You used that weapon on your middle finger. He had just landed and hadn't finished his momentum, so his body ended up attacking abruptly in an incomprehensible posture. No matter how many times you shoot, your power is not enough to push back this old man. Kong began to irritate her, just as he did in the past when he was the fleet admiral. Big Mom, true to her temperament, naturally got irritated by Kong's mockery. However, he didn't give her time to be surprised. Kong's fist was like an elephant's trunk descending towards Big Mom's belly. With a groan of pain, she flew in the same direction as Kaido. Kong knew that this attack wouldn't take her out of the fight, he just wanted to buy time to save the Marines who were still on their last breath. After doing all this, he took off his justice cloak and solemnly said, "It seems that I am still somewhat useful as a shrimp soldier and crab general. Everyone around was surprised. Kong was really sent. Former Fleet Admiral, current Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. Everyone was very surprised by Kong's appearance, and naturally, their morale skyrocketed. Among the prisoners, Red Earl even showed hatred. He clenched his teeth and whispered, "Kong." The reason he was in the underwater prison was because Kong defeated him and sent him here. On the other hand, Sengoku, Garp, and the high-ranking officials breathed a sigh of relief. Now that Kong is here, the situation can stabilize. The stone dropped in everyone's hearts. On the opposite side, Kaido stood up from the ground, and gravel fell on his body with a thud. Big Mom did the same, but she didn't show any other negative expression, though her face was indifferent. She said, "I didn't expect this damn bones to be so tough." Uff, cluck, cluck. Whirro. Kaido stretched his old muscles and began laughing maniacally. He said in a soft laugh, "No problem, it's good to come, since I almost forgot why I am Kaido of the Beasts." Kaido had gotten so used to the air cannon that he momentarily forgot that even without the air cannon, he was still a four emperors. Kaido, a strong man who loves to fight, is very excited about Kong's appearance. But in front of Kong, he made a hand gesture and said, No. Kaido, you're mistaken. This time, I'm not the key. The real good thing is here." Saying this, Kong ordered, "Let them see." The order was issued, and behind Kong, the sound of footsteps could be heard as an elite marine unit took the stage. When Kaido saw this, he just wanted to laugh. But he soon realized that something was wrong. These people still held a box in their hands, and inside it seemed to be senzu beans. Are these senzu beans? Big Mom frowned. It shouldn't be possible. If it's senzu beans, the Marines can't have so many. There are dozens of elites, each with a large box, and the number is quite impressive. "What is this, Kong?" Kaido asked in a deep voice. Kong smiled. "Can't you imagine what it is?" All the members of the Beast Pirates couldn't help but feel a cold sweat at the sight. The quantity was just too much. Kong saw the fear in everyone's eyes and smiled. He admitted that Sengoku's plan was too incredible. Instilling fear through a huge quantity of senzu beans, thus lowering the enemy's morale. Naturally, these beans are the ones previously developed by Vegapunk. They can only match a small part of the real ones. But this information is classified, and no one in the Beast Pirates knows about it. However, Sengoku didn't imagine that Jigen had already surpassed his plans. King suddenly remembered something. Could it be that? An absurd thought arose in King's mind as he took out a note from one of his pockets. Chapter 120, Copy. King quickly glanced at the note while Kong continued to mock Kaido and Big Mom. King is an intelligent person. He narrowed his eyes slightly, intending to understand the terrible meaning of Jigen. Scientifically, the medicinal proportion is a complete joke. It doesn't even reach 10% of the original product. At first, King thought it was just one of Jigen's several nonsensical notes or requests for resources. However, this note was given to him just before the battle. Coincidence? He doesn't think so. King opened his eyes with uncertainty. The real question was, how did Jigen know that the Marines had attempted to recreate senzu beans on a large scale? Even his spies in Manaford were unable to obtain such information, and Jigen rarely left his laboratory. King naturally did not suspect Jigen's loyalty. After all, the Beast Pirates had benefited greatly. He even thought they were taking advantage of him. Instead, he looked at Jigen in a new light. He was a completely unfathomable figure to him. And his previously demonstrated abilities only served to secure this thought. Unconsciously, King turned to the back of the paper and read the content. It's just a bean that can heal a superficial wound at most and some fatigue. Meanwhile, Kaido pondered the situation as he watched Kong openly mock alongside Garp. He never imagined that his beloved subordinate's inventions would be replicated by the people he hated the most. Furthermore, he knew that Jigen was not someone who easily got nervous. He always believed that his cutting-edge technology could not be plagiarized by others, which was his confidence in him. In front of them, Sengoku, Garp, Kong were filled with joy when they saw these beans. In fact, they knew that they were recreated little fairy beans. Great. This is what we've been waiting for. Hope filled the eyes of the Marines once again. Although this bin cannot compare to the bin invented by the scientific disaster, they now urgently need it, even if it cannot fully replicate the effect of the original. However, what the Marines didn't know was that these bins couldn't make their lost limbs grow back. There was even a Vice Admiral excited to revive his dead comrade. Kong waved his hand directly and ordered his elite Marines to distribute these bins to everyone first. The bins were released into the hands of the wounded. To activate it, you need to chew it, but the Marines deliberately cover it up to prevent the enemy from discovering it. After taking a large amount of beans, each Marine started to regain their physical strength and heal their wounds. Immediately, The morale of everyone in the Marines skyrocketed and they shouted to take down the pirates. When the prisoners around saw the Marines recovering, they all exclaimed. After all, the amount of beans shown by them was really astounding, and they didn't know much about the beans, but they all felt that they were the same as the ones invented by the young man earlier. On Kaido's side, King looked at this mockingly. No wonder they need around 10 beans at a time to fully recover, but even with that, it's not capable of regenerating a lost limb. It's a cheaper copy. It would be good if it had side effects. They eat this as if it were food. King muttered silently. However, upon seeing the low morale of the beast pirates, he decided to announce all his speculations. Don't be scared, it's just a cheap copy of the original beans, although I believe many of you noticed when you saw the astronomical amount of beans each one consumes. Well, I'll tell you that yes, I received information from Brother Jigen. These so-called magic beans can only replicate 10% of their medicinal power. This doesn't even reach enough to recover your haki, let alone grow a new limb. The Marines always trying to deceive. King paid close attention to the whole process. He knew nothing about the Senzu beans, but with Jigen's help, he found the lead directly. Kaido, Big Mom, Kitakuri, Doflamingo. They all suddenly looked at King. King laughed and said, I have to say that being able to reproduce so many beans is truly amazing, however, it only serves to give them more time. Such consumption will undoubtedly empty all those boxes, it's just a matter of enduring. King looked as a large portion of the boxes containing the Senzu beans were already completely empty and said. It must be said that his observation was incredibly accurate. So much so that Kaido, who never paid attention to these things, praised him. Kaido couldn't help but laugh out loud, whoa. It turned out to be fake. They must have been developed by the old Vegapunk. I didn't know he liked to copy technology and even fail in its development. With that said, Kaido didn't even snort coldly. In the past, Vegapunk studied his lineage when he was a captive, in order to develop his biological physique and recreate another mythical fruit like his own. He just doesn't know if he succeeded or not. On the other hand, upon hearing this, Big Mom couldn't help but mock, it only has a tenth of the effect, how dare they be so arrogant. Doflamingo, Kitakuri, Queen, and many others mocked one after another. To boast so much, it turned out to be a batch of counterfeit products. After King revealed the screen set up by the Marines, the morale of everyone returned to its peak. Chapter 121, Unexpected Visit. Although they are said to be fake beans, but in the case of a large quantity, they are still useful for fatal injuries, so the Marines did not refute the forgery. After all, you can't bite the hand that feeds you. As long as it's not a fatal injury, eat the fake beans. And save the originals only for extreme wounds. This is of great help to the Marines, who continue to focus on scraping Senzu beans from enemies. The two sides started another much fiercer fight than before, while each side frantically consumed beans. However, it was still the prisoners who suffered the collision. Kong faced Kaido alone with his characteristic air cannon, while Garp and Sengoku, who were released, began to attack Big Mom collectively, which made Kitakuri and King have to come to her aid. Otherwise, she could enter a crisis and attack indiscriminately without distinguishing between ally and enemy. Fortunately, there are many beans on the Alliance side, allowing the battlefield to maintain balance and both sides to hold each other. Onigashima Jigen's laboratory. Jigen was investigating Ace's blood while waiting for him to wake up. However, someone quickly came to report that he had a certain visitor. Jigen frowned. Now that everyone is in Impel Down, he couldn't think of anyone who would want to visit him. He left what he was doing and went to Onigashima's banquet hall. Upon arrival, he could see who the person who came to see him was. A woman of exquisite and captivating appearance, with a tall and slender stature, pronounced curves, and an athletic figure. Incredibly smooth and pale skin, highlighting her natural beauty. Her long silky jet black hair cascaded down almost touching her plump buttocks. Her eyes were large and expressive, showing the anger she was feeling at the moment. Of an intense violet color, reflecting her strong and determined personality. Her eyebrows were thin and well-defined, accentuating her penetrating gaze. Boa Hancock, Pirate Empress, successor leader of the legendary Amazon Lily Island. Hancock narrowed her eyes dangerously as she saw the young man in front of her. She had never expected that the much-rumored scientist lately on everyone's lips would be someone so young. Where are my sisters? Hancock got straight to the point. In contrast, Jigen smiled maliciously. Your sisters are having a great time in prison, waiting for you to join them. Jigen said mockingly. The little patience that Hancock had left was lost at this moment. Her body accelerated at an incredible speed as she raised her right leg towards Jigen's chest. However, the latter took her hardened leg with haki as if it were a normal attack. Hancock was surprised by this. She did not expect the young man to be so well versed in combat, she thought he was just a simple scientist. She strategically retreated while striking her characteristic pose. I will ask you again, where are my sisters? Hancock usually wears elegant and eye-catching outfits, a long and tight white dress with golden details that highlights her figure and enhances her femininity. Additionally, she wears a red cape over her shoulders and often wears high heels that give her an air of elegance and sophistication. This only makes her beauty stand out even more. However, her plan failed miserably. Because Jigen didn't even react to her beauty as she had planned. Instead, he had a blank expression. For the first time, this beautiful white-skinned Amazon doubted her beauty. But also, upon seeing that her plan failed, she decided to calm down a bit. Jigen changed his expression and smiled. Are you calm now? He asked. However, Hancock did not respond. Instead, she returned the question. Are my sisters okay? She asked angrily. They are alive. As for whether they are okay, that depends on you. Right now, they are in a somewhat uncomfortable situation. Jigen said as he took out a small remote control and pressed it. Suddenly, a blue screen materialized out of nowhere, surprising Hancock. But then, her face darkened as she saw the content on that giant screen. Her sisters were each tied to a pillar, while countless giant crocodiles below were excited for their meal. What do you want? Hancock had no choice but to lower her arrogance and pride. Why don't you sit first? Don't worry about your friend outside, someone is keeping him entertained. Jigen said as he took a glass of wine from the table and waved it in Hancock's direction. On the other hand, upon hearing this, Hancock became even paler than usual. Her body couldn't help but tremble because the situation was no longer in her hands as she initially thought. No matter how much she thought, she couldn't understand how this boy found Rayleigh. Before coming to Wano, she went to ask for Rayleigh's help and unexpectedly encountered Akagami no Shakes at Shaki's bar. He told her that the Beast Pirates are currently engaged in a large-scale war at Impel Down. So if she wanted to save her sisters, there wouldn't be a better opportunity than this. Upon arrival, Rayleigh decided to hide, but unexpectedly he was discovered by the young man in front of her. Jigen began to laugh at the internal dilemma of this woman. It's incredible what hockey can do, isn't it? With a predatory smile, Jigen invited Hancock to sit down. Chapter 122, and 1, You. Are you studying lineage factor? Hancock asked incredulously as she saw the samples in Jigen's laboratory. First, put on this suit. Jigen ignored her surprise and took out a maid outfit for Hancock. Hancock looked at Jigen reproachfully. Do you want me to wear a maid outfit? Yes, it's just for research purposes. Jigen said brazenly. Hancock had the impulse to hit him, but she remembered that her sisters were still captive. She had no choice but to put on the outfit. Jigen smiled arrogantly at seeing this. Dealing with this fierce Amazon is really not easy. Answering your question, yes, I am studying lineage factor. I want to replicate the power of devil fruits, whether they are Parimsha, Logia, or zone types. Hancock narrowed her eyes directly. Do you know the consequences of this kind of research? Although Hancock was not interested in these things, she was not ignorant enough to not know that if the world government finds out about this research from someone other than Vegapunk himself, they would be erased from history instantly. These old men have been quiet for too long. It's time to make them move their asses. Jigen smiled fiercely. They think Vegapunk is the only one who can unlock the shackles of lineage factor just because he experimented with someone like Bartholomew Kuma's lineage. Nonsense, that old man will never be able to create a clone with the same level of power. I refuse to lose to someone like him. This time, I have a member of the most mysterious clan in this world, a descendant of Gold D. Roger himself. Jigen pressed a button and showed Ace in a small transparent water tank. I will create a clone with the same level of power as the original through lineage. Although it will be difficult, I will be able to do it. Hancock remained motionless after suddenly receiving so much information. But a question arose in her mind. Why was he telling her all this? Jigen vaguely read her thoughts through the expression on her face and said, I know you're wondering why I'm telling you all this. It's very simple, I want to hire your services to collect blood from the great figures of this world. Hancock's brain exploded upon hearing this. You're crazy. She couldn't help but say. Your vision is really narrow. I know you hate the world government with all your might, which is why I chose you over other figures, but let me tell you something, to change this system, we have to completely destroy it, and that creates many enemies, which is why we need as much personnel as possible, with the factor of lineage, not just clones, but normal people will be able to become users without the need to consume a devil fruit, only then will we have the power to destroy this system and rebuild a new one based on capitalism. Hancock remained silent for a few seconds before asking. What is capitalism? Something good and bad at the same time. Jigen simply replied. By the way, since you know about my research, I need samples from you as well. Jigen said with a half smile. Hancock looked at the cheeky smile on the other end and was speechless. "Will this free my sisters?" she asked. "Freeing them is the least of my concerns. I can offer you enough support to create an organization solely of women who work directly for me," Jigen said, revealing his final request. "What do you say?" "The world government will attack Amazon Lily once I no longer am a part of the 7 warlords of the seas," Hancock said. "You don't have to stop being a 7 warlords of the seas for now, and don't worry about your island. You're talking to a scientist. I can hide your island so that not even Vegapunk himself will have the technology to find it. Furthermore, in a few years, during the next Lovely, the 7 warlords of the seas system will be abolished. You know, nobody trusts pirates." Hancock thought for a moment while Jigen looked at her amusedly. She had to admit that this woman deserved her reputation. Only because she manages to control herself due to one of her women not losing in terms of beauty against Hancock. Which is why she doesn't get too excited about Hancock's beauty and acts naturally. "I need to think about it. Can you let me talk to my sisters?" "Of course, you have all the time in the world. I hope you make a good decision." Jigen walked away as a door opened in front of Hancock, revealing a medium-sized room where her sisters were unconscious. Unexpectedly, the scene of them in danger was just a screen. Looking at Jigen's back, Hancock felt more and more curious about this guy, who doesn't hold back when talking about the world government. Impelled down in the end, the Beast Pirates Alliance had no choice but to retreat. Kaido said angrily. "Everyone, retreat." He looked at all the Marines, and finally looked at Kong. His eyes were not good and his voice was threatening. "The next time we meet, I'll return the greeting, Marine." "No. World government." Kong still wanted to pursue, but everyone returned to the rear. Under the bombardment of every air cannon, no matter how powerful Kong was, he wouldn't dare to easily pursue while ignoring the lives lost of his men. In the end, the regiment left through several gates deployed by Kaido, Big Mom, Doflamingo, King, and Katakuri. Sengoku looked at the backs of Kaido and Big Mom, and let out a deep sigh. "Sengoku, tell me in detail everything that happened before coming here." Kong approached Sengoku and said. Sengoku let out another tired sigh. "That brat knows too much." This was all that Sengoku told his superior with a grave voice. Onigashima outside the castle Rayleigh, who had came to Onigashima to protect Hancock, had a heated battle with a young giant with a mace in his hand. After avoiding an attack infused with strong armor haki, he stepped back and said with a tired face. "It's terrifying, the point at which that guy has accomplished something like this." Rayleigh exclaimed gravely as he saw the spitting image of Kaido as a young man fighting him hand to hand. However, he had no emotion shown on his face, as if he had no soul or heart. She didn't even frown every time she managed to score a wound on him. This confirmed to Rayleigh, someone too knowledgeable about the events of this world, that the young Kaido in front of him was just some kind of clone. Chapter 123, End, 2, Raimai Hakkai. As Rayleigh pondered deeply, the young Kaido suddenly appeared in front of him, wielding his signature mace attack. However, Rayleigh managed to dodge it. "How terrifying, what I just discovered." Rayleigh adjusted his glasses as he carefully examined the expressionless face of his enemy. Jigen, who was observing from a room in his laboratory while waiting for Hancock's decision, couldn't help but get excited at the sight of his creation's power. At this point, there was no point in hiding his greatest invention yet. Far surpassing his previous creations. The system allowed him to study lineage factors on his own, as it was not originally an objective to be achieved. It was just a whim of Jigen's when he realized that a mere pirate alliance cannot stand against the 900 years or more that the world government has reigned. The fight lasted about 10 minutes. With Rayleigh beheading Kaido's clone. Jigen applauded this. "It lasted longer than expected. This time let's see what you can do with 3 silvers, Rayleigh." Jigen pressed a button near him as he thought. What better time to test his clones than with the Dark King himself? Impel Down Kong's eyes also blinked upon hearing the exploits of the mysterious scientist of the Beast Pirates. "I'm afraid another monster will emerge from this sea." Kong couldn't help but say. There was Rocks in those days, then Roger, and now Jigen, who not only knows the secret that Mary Ejoi's holds, but is also a terrifying scientist no less than Vegapunk. The dead exist in the past, and I must attend to the future. What a distinguished phrase. At that moment, Okainu, Aokiji, and Kizaru walked towards the crowd while consuming a large amount of beans created by Vegapunk. Kizaru had to admit that he was given a good beating for being too confident. He had thought that Jigen was just a scientist, and had no battle power. He had underestimated him. After all, there were no reports of battles coming from the spies infiltrated in Onigashima. He thought Jigen was just talk. However, he really hit a hard wall. Not only did he lose face, but his leg was still numb from touching that mysterious barrier. On the other hand, Okainu's fist was clenched tightly and lava was still flowing from it. His face was filled with anger as he said, "Sengoku-san. Why didn't you give the order to pursue them to Wano and finish them off once and for all?" Before Sengoku could speak, Kong shook his head and said, "Even if we pursue them, we may not be able to kill Kaido and Big Mom. Don't forget they have 2 arbitrary gates. And Onigashima is Kaido's territory. I'm afraid we'll wither away. The war has just ended and there are still many messes to clean up." Everyone couldn't help but look around. At that moment, the 6th floor of the entire underwater prison was in disarray. More than half of the cells were demolished by force. The prisoners inside were dead or injured. Those who didn't escape joined the Pirate Alliance. Truly a group of thieves. Cursed Sengoku. Magellan looked at all this and felt helpless. The 6th floor must be completely renovated. These are not the main points. The main point is that those guys, with the help of the prisoners themselves, have taken control of a large amount of sea stone. These are the materials used by the scientific disaster to experiment with new technologies. Sengoku recalled. Besides that, it is still uncertain whether the elders will approve this renovation. The cost will not be low at all. This time, everyone's originally relaxed hearts rose again and their nerves became tense once more. Onigashima. With the closing of the arbitrary gate, it is considered that this war has come to an end. However, Big Mom is distressed over her arbitrary gate. Unexpectedly Kong managed to grab it. It made her seem a little crazy. Damn Marines, they are a plague, truly unpleasant. How dare they take the Elder's arbitrary gate? Big Mom had in mind to destroy several Marine branches on her return to Todo Land. She had to vent that anger she felt. Otherwise, she might lose her sanity. It is impossible for her not to get angry. This arbitrary gate has a special meaning, one that she only obtained after begging for a long time. Kaido saw the state of his old friend and said, "Linlin, forget it, it's just a gate, at most we'll have to reinforce security in our territories. I will talk to him to get you another one." The eyes of Charlotte Linlin, who was about to completely lose her mind, were immediately healed by the words of her old friend. She hurriedly looked at Kaido and said delightedly, "Really?" Kaido nodded affirmatively. He didn't believe that Jigen would refuse. In this war, everyone has contributed a lot, so it won't be a problem to give them rewards according to their contribution to this battle. Kaido, for the first time, seemed like a reliable commander. Big Mom was very happy to hear this. The anger and distress she had just felt disappeared and she laughed heartily. "Ha ha ha, Mama. Mama. Kaido, I hope what you say is true. It's alright Linlin, I will call you when the magic gate is ready for you. For now, use mine." Kaido took his gate and handed it to Charlotte Linlin. "Oh. Kaido, I didn't expect this from you. With this gesture, you have almost fulfilled the debt." Charlotte Linlin exclaimed with extreme joy as she hastily took the gate from Kaido's large hands. Upon hearing her words, Kaido had the urge to hit her, but he was a little tired from his battle with Kong. That guy had held up perfectly. He needed to train more in the time room if he wants to at least fight on equal terms with him. After all, Kong was almost playing with him when they faced off. Chapter 124, New Technology? Onigashima Banquet Hall. It was a strategic retreat, don't think too much about it. Besides, this time we gained more than the Marines. We have a large amount of sea stone for Jigen's new invention, and most importantly, we have a new batch of subordinates, with a special edition of Bullet the Demon. Kaido raised his jug as he drank and said loudly, introducing the new addition to his pirate group. "By the way, Brother Jigen, how did you increase your strength so much?" Everyone was astonished as they recalled Jigen blocking Kizaru's attack. "You really hide yourself too well," Queen said as he bit his cigarette. Jigen seemed helpless and said, "I am a diligent person. Naturally, I won't neglect my training. You won't always be able to protect me, as was the case with Kizaru." Kaido touched his chin and nodded affirmatively. "I can be sure of that, but I still have a lot of confidence in my observation hockey." Kaido drank from his jug as he boasted that he could easily protect Jigen. Jigen almost twisted his lips at this. If it were someone normal, with how busy Kaido was fighting Kong, they would undoubtedly die under Kizaru's feet. However, he didn't say anything to not hurt his captain's old pride. "I am sure of it." Instead, he praised him. On the other hand, Doflamingo's eyes widened. "By the way, is it true that you were just an ordinary person a few months ago?" Doflamingo had this doubt for a few days now after he managed to get Jack to spill some information. And now was the perfect time to clarify his doubt. Sure, you, an extremely important figure in Impel Down, who was another one who agreed to join Kaido, also asked with curiosity. "You're saying that in just a few months, you went from being an ordinary person to easily stopping an admiral's attack? Sure, you seriously doubted if the beast pirates were just acting to make Jigen look good. This was unreasonable. How could something like that exist?" Even Senzubin's and the magic door were as challenging as Jigen's rapid growth. After all, we are talking about one's own strength. Something that can never be stolen from you, unlike Senzubin's and other inventions. This topic of conversation not only caught Shiryu's attention but also Big Mom and her entire regiment present. Everyone was interested, looking at Jigen one after another, waiting for his answer. Naturally, it is impossible for Jigen to say that for every new invention, his strength greatly improves, as well as granting him points to buy random abilities and improve them. This was out of the question. Even Ulti and Hori didn't know, and he had no intention of telling them. No, not because he doesn't trust them, but because a man should always have that air of mystery present, otherwise he would become too boring. This has always been Jigen's logic. Looking out at the crowd, his expression became serious and unpredictable, as if he was about to announce an important event, and he asked, "Do you really want to know? Do you know how I went from being an ordinary person to a force that can easily withstand attacks from an admiral?" This time, everyone's expressions became serious after Jigen's serious words. Even Kaido and Big Mom fell silent, feeling very curious and listening attentively with eager ears. Shiryu suddenly found his palms sweating. He also wanted to have that kind of strength in such a short time. Is Jigen about to reveal his exclusive training formula? Everyone wondered. 2 months of training to be almost at the level of an admiral. This kind of training method is definitely the best in the world. As long as you know it, you can quickly improve your strength. In the face of everyone's expectations, Jigen said in detail, the secret is to do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and a 10 kilometers long distance run every day. Everyone. Silence. More silence. Even more silence. Everyone was speechless. For everyone, this training method is too simple. However, more or less everyone understood the reason. After all, it's your secret, you wouldn't be foolish enough to reveal it so easily. Or would you? Worororo. Jigen, that's why I love you so much, you make me laugh. But please don't take future jokes so seriously. Jigen scratched his head and laughed with Kaido. Naturally, the others didn't take it seriously either. Jigen has his own secret training method to become stronger, which is also good for them. At least Jigen has the ability to protect himself in the future. Plus, they still had the time room, it's not like they didn't have the opportunity. Obviously, they did. Oh, by the way. This time we lost an arbitrary door and 2 air cannons. King suddenly changed the subject. Everyone nodded, feeling really distressed. There's no need to feel distressed, these things are easy to replace, as long as you pay with materials or money. Jigen tried to lighten the mood. Something he succeeded in, at least with Big Mom. Oh Jigen, I'm so glad to hear that, I had grown so fond of those things. Big Mom's eyes sparkled as she tried to pull Jigen into a bear hug. However, he quickly dodged it for the sake of his health. I will also improve the air cannon, so it will be more effective and functional for its users. Upon hearing this, everyone once again couldn't help but fall into shock. Can it be improved? In response to the question, Jigen simply smiled. Who was the creator? Chapter 125, Marine's Happiness. After enjoying the huge banquet, Jigen waited until the entire banquet hall fell silent before solemnly saying, "Everyone, bring out the Kairoseki you stole this time." Immediately, a clattering sound began to echo all around as everyone started bringing out the Kairoseki they had captured this time, eagerly piling up the sea stone until it formed a hill, almost covering the entire banquet hall. It was an impressive sight. I've never seen so much in my life. Katakuri couldn't help but sigh. King was also amazed. This is extremely difficult to extract. While it can be extracted in Wonokuni, due to technical difficulties, it's not enough to meet the demand. It will take at least a few years to extract these quantities. Soon, everyone brought out all the Kairoseki they had stolen from Impel Down. Jigen was also very excited to see so much, as this new technology should be enough for development. It was because the beast pirates weren't very active in extraction in Wano that it was truly beautiful to use this battle to capture it from the hands of the Marines themselves. Alright. Everyone, your contribution this time is very good. Record the amount you captured this time and then ask Brother King to make a statistic, and then each one of you can exchange your own contributions for technology. Currently, only Senzubin's Universal Capsule and Air Cannon are available, but the latter will be open to the market in the future due to its limitation in development. That being said, there is also a training opportunity to enter the time room. Jigen excited the crowd. As for the magic gate, this super technology cannot be popularized because it is too important and can only be in responsible hands. Just having obtained Big Mom's gate was enough for the Marines. However, when everyone heard this, they became very excited and one by one started cheering. For them, the Senzubins are life-saving medicine and the universal capsule, allows them to have unlimited storage space, so they don't care too much about not being able to get the magic gate. The most important thing is that Jigen said that in the future, the air cannon will be available to the public. This excited them a lot. In the current battle, everyone had seen the power of the air cannon. Ignoring the cheers of the crowd, Jigen began to think about the next plan, the next new technology, the somersault cloud. That's right. The new technology is the somersault cloud. There are very few people in this world who have the ability to fly. This is a world that relies on pirate ships. If this comes to light, it will make huge waves again. Imagine the Animal Kingdom pirates, if everyone could fly, becoming an air force and cooperating with the air cannon, and the strategic technology of the universal capsule, aerial attacks could easily be completed. This is a nightmare for the opponent. This can't help but make Jigen think of the blockbuster success of Iron Man. He looked at Jack and said, "Jack, help me move all the sea stone to the laboratory." Jack quickly responded, "All right. Big brother, this is nothing." He was also a bit impatient, eagerly awaiting Jigen's new invention. What could it be? And just as Jack was about to place the mountain-shaped sea stone into the universal capsule, Shiryu approached, greeted Jigen with great respect, and said, "I have wanted to personally meet the disaster scientist for a long time. Can I do something for you?" Jigen couldn't help but be surprised by this. He knew who Shiryu was, but he never imagined that he would change the tides of time and join the Beast Pirates. Jigen suddenly wanted to see Blackbeard's face when he arrived at Impel Down and found it as empty as his heart. Putting these thoughts aside, he extended his hand to greet the new recruit. "A pleasure to meet you, Shiryu of the Rain. I hope you can contribute greatly to the Beast Pirates. Only then can we fully trust you." Jigen warmly welcomed him. Soon, Jack returned to Jigen with several universal capsules filled with sea stone. Jigen no longer said nonsense, skillfully mounted Jack and left the banquet hall, returning to his own laboratory. Starting the research on a new technology. Impel Down Director's office this time, more than half of the 6th floor was demolished by force. Along with the fierce war between the two sides, despite the Marines stealing many bins before, the loss was not small. However, the atmosphere in the office was not as gloomy as expected. All the executives, including Kong, were dazzled and excited about their new acquisition. Kong sat in Magellan's chair shamelessly and laughed heartily. This time the loss has been exchanged for a magic door and an air cannon. Not bad at all. Sengoku and Garp were also very happy. Before, the Beast Pirates guarded the door very well, but this time we took the initiative to attack, and that gave us a chance. Tsuru mentioned while also delighting in the air cannon. "It's really cool." Vegapunk also exclaimed excitedly. Naturally, upon being notified that the Marines had successfully acquired a magic door, he hurried to Impel Down. Chapter 126, Analyzing the Magic Door. 1. Kizaru couldn't help but approach and look at the door. As he touched his chin, he murmured, "Hey. This thing looks like a normal door. It's really hard to believe that it can connect to other realms and let people travel thousands of kilometers away in an instant." Kizaru had his own view of this world, and this naturally didn't fit into it. If they hadn't seen Kaido and others go through this door before, he wouldn't have believed that it could allow people to go wherever they wanted. Akainu still had no expression on his face. He touched the arbitrary door, then looked at Vegapunk and said, "How should this arbitrary door be used?" Vegapunk said as he fumbled around. "Take it easy, Sakazuki, I've been curious about that too. It doesn't have any buttons, not even the coordinate location, which is really curious." Out of curiosity, Vegapunk decided to give it a try. With the Marine headquarters in mind, he tried to open the door, and with a twist of the handle, Vegapunk opened it. Soon, the situation inside the door appeared before everyone's eyes. To everyone's eyes, the nearby scene was an open space. It was the plaza of the Marine headquarters, and behind the huge plaza, the Marine base camp appeared in front of everyone, and there was a logo representing the Marines. Marine headquarters. Everyone present couldn't help but take a deep breath. God, the Marine headquarters is here. Magellan was dumbfounded. Not only him, but everyone else was the first to experience any door, and they were all amazed. Vegapunk doesn't know how to operate any door, after all, it doesn't have buttons. So he simply had the mindset to give it a try. Thinking of going to the Marine headquarters, he opened the door and then everyone present saw the Marine headquarters appear in the background of the door. This shocked all the Marine executives present, as they experienced the arbitrary door with their own eyes. "What's happening?" Kong stood up from his office chair, surprised. He didn't see any operation from Vegapunk at all, he simply opened the door and arrived at the Marine headquarters. Vegapunk was also shocked by such an operation, he said incredulously. "It seems that this arbitrary door doesn't need any coordinates input, as long as the user has the destination in mind and opens the door. When Vegapunk said this, he couldn't believe it, but after experiencing it himself, he had to believe it. All this technology is incredible. How is this done? What kind of technology is this? Sengoku asked in astonishment. Vegapunk was speechless and couldn't respond at all. Khan took a deep breath again and then sat back in his office chair. I have to say, that brat's technology is truly amazing, if only he had arrived earlier. Khan mentioned as he clenched his fists. Someone so talented and monstrous should serve the world government. Although they are reluctant to allow the enemy to be so powerful, they have to admit that their technology is really good. Vegapunk is even more worried. I can't understand this technology from the beginning, let alone the core central technology. This is something they had never even thought of. Magic. He was truly amazed. The structure of this door was so simple. It was just a door frame and there wasn't much equipment on it, but it was a terrifying super technological means to connect two worlds thousands of kilometers apart. If this isn't magic, then what is it? It's truly mind-boggling to be able to create such technology. I never would have imagined that I could see such super technology in my lifetime. Vegapunk's mood is a bit complicated. One is the excitement of seeing this super technology, and the other is that this super technology is a huge closed book to him. Everyone took turns experiencing the arbitrary door. Sengoku went straight to his uncle's house, Kong returned to his office in Mary Ejo's, Garp went back to take a look at his hometown. Kizaru was the most excited. If he could have won, he wouldn't have to save any more time for resting. After all the high-ranking Marines had experienced the door, their eyes turned to the air cannon. Everyone in the place was very concerned about this. After all, it was an artifact that allowed a simple 7 warlords of the seas like Doflamingo to seriously injure someone like a Kaimyu. Which was terrifying in itself. That's why everyone attached great importance to this air cannon. Garp took the air cannon from his companion Tsuru's hand and said, "Unfortunately, this seems to be custom-made. I wanted to test it after capturing it earlier, but it doesn't fit at all," he said with annoyance as he saw that it didn't fit on his finger. In fact, it almost covered his entire hand. It deserves to be the one used by Big Mom. Someone whistled in the midst of the discussion. Vegapunk said, "According to the situation with the door, I believe this air cannon can definitely be adjusted." When everyone heard his words, their eyes lit up and they quickly gave Vegapunk a hopeful look. After Vegapunk investigated for a while, he discovered the adjustable settings on the air cannon. He tested it and indeed, the air cannon can be adjusted in size. This made Sengoku sigh. Truly thoughtful technology. Garp got excited and immediately took it after seeing that it could be adjusted in size. Under Vegapunk's guidance, he put it in his hand. Indeed, this time it fit. Looking at the air cannon in his hand, he couldn't help but feel very happy. "You bastard Kaido. The Marines now have their own air cannon. I look forward to making you swallow one of my attacks." The other Marine executives were also delighted and in their hearts, they wanted to counterattack and fight Kaido again. The previous battle was truly too embarrassing before Commander of the Armed Forces Kong arrived. The air cannon made the important figures of the alliance stand out too much. Among them, Akainu was the one who looked forward to it the most. "Don't get too excited, we only have one, who knows if that guy can create more in a short period of time." Sengoku poured cold water on everyone's head as usual. Chapter 127, Analyzing the Magic Door, 2, Garp cleared his throat at his friend's words, however, he didn't pay too much attention to it. True strength comes from oneself, not from a secondary object. Vegapunk is worthy of being the most powerful scientist. After researching various super technologies of Jigen, he gradually understood their general routine. It is estimated that this is also a magical technology similar to knowledge reading. You can give it a try, Garp. When Garp heard the words, he immediately tried the idea of charging, and the air cannon on his finger actually started charging the next second. Kizaru couldn't help but exclaim when he saw this scene. Too convenient, isn't it? Everyone unconsciously admired Jigen greatly in their hearts. All of his technology is top-notch, and once created, it is so simple that it leaves people speechless. Once the charge was complete, Kong stood up from his office chair and took the initiative. "Garp, attack me, let me give it a try." After hearing the words, everyone around them took the initiative to move away from the space and retreated to the side. After all, they had all seen the power of the air cannons. They simply don't know what kind of power Garp, the marine hero, can unleash. Garp half smiled and said, "Kong, are you sure?" Kong waved his hand and didn't care. "Although I'm old, I'm very tough. Besides, even if I get hit hard, I can still take it." However, as he was halfway through speaking, he heard a loud and terrifying noise. In a fraction of a second, a huge wave swept over the audience. The terrifying force cracked and shattered the decorative furniture inside. Everyone around them was shocked. Each vice admiral was unstable and flew upside down. Jian, who was also present, was no exception. Kong couldn't help but shout in excitement. "Garp, give it your all." Facing this growing attack like a tidal wave, Kong shouted. "Iron body." Suddenly, Kong's entire body seemed to be armored with a complete set of black armor, which was indestructible. This is Kong's iron body. However, after facing Garp's air cannon, his iron body broke in less than 3 seconds. Kong didn't even have time to be surprised when his chest had been caved in, meaning his ribs were broken and his internal organs were severely injured. His whole body seemed to have been hit by a truck and crashed into the wall. 1 wall, 2 walls, 3, and it didn't stop until the 5th wall collapsed. They were in Manafort, so this incident caused a general uproar. However, Sengoku took control of the situation and dispatched everyone. After all, he wanted to prevent this from spreading. Through the enormous holes, everyone looked at Commander Kong buried under the ruins, and they were shocked beyond words. This air cannon has increased such a terrifying attack power. Sengoku couldn't help but swallow. Everyone was shocked and speechless. Soon, the sound of a crash echoed from the ruins, and Kong's bulky body stood up, but at that moment he was extremely embarrassed, with scars all over his body and a large hole directly sunken into his chest, yet he was still able to stand. Undoubtedly, he had a terrifying vitality. Sengoku hurriedly searched for a senzu bin and handed it to Kong. After eating the bin, Kong's wounds healed. At that moment, his face was ugly and terrifying, and he approached Garp without saying a word, immediately grabbing the air cannon from his finger and finally said without the slightest expression, "It's your turn." Garp waved his hand to refuse, knowing Kong's strength, and if he receives his power doubled by the air cannon, he will undoubtedly end up in the same or worse condition than him. However, how could Kong let it go? Without listening to Garp's plea for mercy, Kong smiled. "This is to test the power of super technology, Garp. As a hero of the Marines, you must consider the overall situation." Kong's fair words angered Garp. Garp had no choice but to nod in agreement. Kong smiled, then loaded the air cannon, raised his hand, and aimed at Garp. Boom! Kong's cannon violently shook all of Manafort, the surrounding walls directly collapsed, and cracks began to appear throughout the meeting room. Seconds later, Garp's body fell heavily to the ground. In a semi-dead state, with labored breathing that seemed to be on his last breath. A powerhouse like Kong, who naturally was much stronger than Garp and Sengoku, could not be embarrassed in front of the younger generation. So he infused almost most of his power into the small cannon that barely fit in him. In the face of this, Garp didn't even feel pain when he fell into a vegetative state. Chapter 128, News Spread. 1. Upon witnessing the chaos around them, everyone fell silent. With such power, even Sengoku trembled slightly. It wasn't until the last few minutes that everyone suddenly returned to normal. Sengoku's face changed dramatically, and he quickly ran towards Garp and gave him an original senzu bean. Although they had managed to recreate the senzu bins, they still had a greater quantity of original senzu beans. After Garp took the bin, he took a deep breath as if he had been suffocating for a long time. Then, countless cold sweats appeared all over his body, making Garp feel as if he had fallen into the sea and then was picked up. His eyes were filled with fear, his limbs were cold, and his heart was beating violently. After a while, he couldn't help but tremble and said, "This is just a mistake. This kind of power is the first time in my life that I experience it, not even Roger was so terrifying." He murmured in pure disbelief. Everyone agreed, including Kong. "If a person has such a super weapon, I'm afraid this time we won't even need to fight and it will be crushed directly." After witnessing the confrontation between Garp and Kong, the 3 admirals and the vice admiral were eager to try it out, and they all wanted to experience the air cannon. They all returned to the courtyard and planned to experiment with the air cannon there. The 3 admirals, as well as Momozagi, T-Dolphin, and other vice admirals, bombarded each other and resisted, causing the entire Marine headquarters to tremble. Surrounded by Marines, a large number of them couldn't help but watch, observing a group of Marine executives who didn't know what to do with each other, leaving them stunned and bewildered. Is this a new invention? Yes. In this battle, the hero Garp and the Marshal got it from Big Mom. This is too frightening. How can a vice admiral strike an admiral so much? Miss Jian almost knocked Admiral Akanu unconscious. How can this be? Seeing the Marine executives testing the air cannons, the Marine soldiers at the Marine headquarters were completely shocked. After all, Akanu had a great reputation in Manafort. Not only were these Marine soldiers surprised, but even Akanu, Kizaru, and Okiji were stunned when they experienced such power. This little thing directly elevates the height they can't reach in a short time. Everyone is completely amazed by Jigen, which further worries them about new technologies to be developed. I hope he doesn't continue creating weapons of mass destruction, For now I will try to decipher this weapon," said Vegapunk, who was watching the battle, also shocked. Based on Vegapunk's previous re-recording with the Senzubin and the disposable universal capsule, Sengoku agreed without hesitation. "Work hard, Dr. Vegapunk, even re-recording a small air cannon or a less powerful magic gate will be a great contribution." Sengoku couldn't help but cheer. Just as Vegapunk was about to leave, the Dendenmashi rang in Sengoku's arms, and when he saw who it was, Sengoku immediately became serious. Everyone else turned their heads, because it was someone special. Only Garp scolded him and said with an indifferent expression, "It's this group of old folks calling again, TSK." Sengoku couldn't help but look at Garp. This is not the appropriate occasion to say this. Kong, the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, is here. However, Kong pretended not to hear it. He knew Garp's character, but if it were someone else, they would definitely be reprimanded. This is the meaning of strength in this world, that everything can be forgiven as long as you are strong. Seeing that Garp was a little more honest, Sengoku replied. The Dendenmashi connected without any delay, and suddenly an angry voice of a Gorosei sounded. "Sengoku, how are things going with the Marines?" From the tone of voice, it could be heard that he was furious for some reason. And it was no wonder. They learned the news that Impel Down was destroyed by pirates, Kaido and Big Mom, and they even stole a large amount of Kairosuke, and Jack was rescued. After they spent so much effort promoting their detention. As one of the official institutions, Impel Down, when such a big event happened, figures like them naturally receive the news firsthand. Once this battle spreads, we will completely lose face. They were furious. Even their backup plan was shattered, because Ace disappeared among the escaped prisoners. Because they allowed Khan to leave Mary Ejoi's, they had become overconfident. They thought that with him in Impel Down, he would keep everything under control. But unexpectedly, he arrived too late and a scientific disaster had already left the prison. After Sengoku heard the words, he didn't rush to explain, but generously admitted his mistake. As a fleet admiral of the Marines for many years, Sengoku naturally knew very well how to deal with these people. Not long after, they calmed down. Although it is a great defeat for the Marines, we also obtained some good things. Days later, the news began to spread. Impel Down was successfully invaded for the first time in history. The world government and the Marines have completely lost face, not only by allowing Jack the Drought to be successfully rescued, but also by allowing most of the prisoners from the 6th floor to escape, and those who didn't die in the midst of the collision. And as if that weren't enough, a high-ranking officer within Impel Down, Shiryu the Rain, joined the Beast's pirates. These news left the world shocked once again. And the culprit behind all this, naturally, was none other than Morgans, president of the World Economic Paper. Chapter 129, News Spreads, 2. At the World Association of Economic News, the president shouted excitedly. The prison that has been in this world for 800 years has today experienced a major breakthrough. This is definitely big news. Immediately, the newspapers were printed frantically and seagulls flew all over the world. The front page shocked the world with the news. Incredible. Has Impel Down been attacked? The Beast pirates dared to invade a prison that no one dared to touch. This is madness, isn't it? Are the Beast pirates crazy? This is simply madness. What the hell is the Marine doing lately? SHH. Keep quiet, if anyone hears you, it's over. By the way, I heard that the celestial dragons descended directly from Mary Ejoi's to the Sabati archipelago through a magical portal. Hey, stop spreading other people's nonsense. Everyone in the world can clearly feel the arrogance and radicalism of the Beast pirates in recent times. This surprised everyone in the world. They did not expect that the addition of natural disasters would make the Beast pirates win every battle and not lose a single one, which is very terrifying. The key is that until now, the scientific disaster, the new disaster caused by the Beast pirates, the world has basically never seen their true face, and Marine has not yet fully rewarded them. This inevitably makes everyone very interested in this mysterious scientist on par with Vegapunk. As the news fermented, all the characters in the New World and Grand Line received this news. Amazon Lily, I didn't expect that guy to actually dare to destroy Impel Down. Boa Hancock frowned as she looked at the newspaper. Before, when she left Onigashima through a door with her sisters, Jigen told her that he had unfinished business in Impel Down, so her services were not required. In that short time she spent with him wearing a shameful maid outfit, she realized his terrifying research abilities. To the point that she didn't expect that with just a sample of her blood, he would be able to create a clone based on her childhood state. And this clone was not weak at all, but completely loyal to him. This left Hancock with a slight psychological trauma and a mark on her heart. Every time she remembered his brave and determined words about his stance towards the world government, she inexplicably blushed. Sister, it's not the time for you to be distracted, there's a human causing trouble on the island, He has already escaped so many times, don't you plan on killing him? Sandersonia said with a tired look towards Hancock. Lately, they haven't been able to rest well due to another human who had entered the island besides Jigen. This human was, of course, Luffy, who was captured and imprisoned. Upon hearing this, Hancock remembered Jigen's mysterious words. By the way, there must be a boy intruder on your island, don't make things difficult for him, although it may not seem like it, he is someone important in the downfall of the world government. I have disrupted his turning point, but I have a countermeasure for it, so I ask you to take him in until that moment. No matter how you look at it, he doesn't seem like someone worth paying attention to. Remembering Jigen's words, Hancock muttered as she watched from her castle all the commotion caused by Luffy on the island, avoiding being captured again. Put aside the matter of the brat, how about the new bows? Hancock asked to ignore the topic of Luffy at Jigen's request and moved on to more important matters. Upon hearing this, Sandersonia's face lit up, and she instantly forgot about the topic of Luffy. Sister, those bows are incredible, just infusing a little hockey is enough to make us serious, the shooting speed is enough to deal with pirates with over 100 million bounties. This time, we looted a total of 20 pirate ships with extreme ease, including ships full of slaves heading towards Sabidi among them. A beautiful smile appeared on Hancock's face. That damn guy actually didn't lie to me. Hancock muttered to herself, she didn't trust anyone besides her sisters, and much less men, but by a twist of fate, she decided to trust Jigen regarding providing her constant help in exchange for her continuous support in the research about her lineage. And he didn't disappoint her. The rations have increased this time, and we have a message from Jigen-sama that he will provide us with more batches of senzu beans. Sandersonia said happily. Hancock rolled her eyes at this. Why do you call it that? Sandersonia smiled bitterly at the question. She didn't know how to explain that she was now a staunch fan of the infamous scientific disaster. New World, certain unknown island on the coast, the red-haired pirates and Rayleigh meet with the white-beard pirates. After seeing Rayleigh, Whitebeard couldn't help but sigh. I didn't expect that after so many years we can still meet, Silver's Rayleigh. Rayleigh chuckled. Yes. I never thought that after almost 20 years, this old man would choose to return to the sea. I really like wasting time. Gorrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr like you're just a mere legend." Rayleigh gave a wry smile. "Even so, they still bother me, especially the Marines." After a few words of greeting, everyone entered the jungle and sat on the air created by the jungle. There was no extravagant decoration and no need for tables, chairs, or benches. This place was considered a meeting for the discussion of the three powers: Whitebeard, Shanks, and Rayleigh. Chapter 130, News Spreads, 3. The three of them took their seats, and the other crew members also took their seats one after another. They all got straight to the point, and Whitebeard was the first to speak. "Rayleigh, Akagami, the news lately is unsettling. This news has spread throughout the world. How is it possible that we haven't heard about it?" Shanks was stunned. Whitebeard nodded and also felt that there was a high probability that both Shanks and Rayleigh already knew about it, and this was just an introduction. Obviously, this time the Beast Pirates and the Big Mom Pirates fought against the Marines. Marco said. Ben Beckman seemed helpless. Right now, those guys are practically unbeatable by a single force. However, this piqued Rayleigh's interest a bit, as he had no idea what the conversation was about. The crowd was not surprised that the group went to rescue Jack this time, but they felt it was very reasonable. Upon hearing Whitebeard sigh, Rayleigh, at the same time, couldn't help but move slightly. "Well, I have some information that no matter how much I think about it, I can't help but take it lightly. You say you went alone to Onigashima?" After explaining briefly, Shanks and his crew were astonished. "Well, Boa Hancock is like my daughter. I couldn't remain indifferent to the situation she was in. Besides, Shaki wouldn't forgive me if I stayed out of it." Rayleigh smiled bitterly. "But the point is that I encountered something terrifying." Rayleigh's eyes gleamed dangerously. "When I intended to enter, something stopped me, although I am still debating whether it is actually a person." Shanks and Whitebeard, as well as their most important crew members, were all listening intently. "It was a young Kaido, as fierce and vigorous as I remember him from when we fought against rocks." Rayleigh dropped the bombshell. Earlier on Onigashima, when he intended to enter with Hancock, the target seemed to be aware of his presence on the island, so he didn't make things difficult for him. Only when he was one step away from entering the tower, he was intercepted by this figure. With a serious look, Rayleigh took Hancock and lifted her to the upper floors. He then had a heated battle with the young Kaido, a battle he wouldn't be proud of. How can this be? Upon hearing this, Yasop almost fell backward. Ben Beckman almost dropped his cigarette. As for Whitebeard, upon hearing this, he couldn't help but laugh while drinking from his flask. That guy managed to decipher the lineage factor, Even Vegapunk still has problems in this field. Shanks said, his eyes turning serious. This matter is something that must be taken seriously. Shanks thought to himself as he decided to pay a visit to the elders. I really don't know how far he has gotten, but I can't guarantee that Kaido is the only one he has replicated. Really said. After a while of discussion, everyone began to focus on the opportunities that this battle could bring them. Ben Beckman took advantage of the moment and said, I believe we can seize this opportunity to delve deeper into the territory of the beast pirates. While Kaido dominates the production of senzu beans, which can directly ignore the physical fatigue caused by war, after a war, it is not only physical but also mentally exhausting, something that senzu beans cannot heal. So we can take this opportunity to invade Onigashima and capture more technology. Even if there is no magical door or air cannon, etc., the bins and universal capsules are also of great help to us. Although everyone said nothing, they all nodded silently, expressing their approval of Ben Beckman's statement. Furthermore, this time Kaido and Big Mom directly attacked Impel Down, which humiliated both the Marines and the world government. The world government will definitely not let this pass so easily, and they will also consider this. This is also our opportunity. As everyone discussed the next plan, the world's greatest swordsman, Mihawk, arrived at the Promised Island. As for why he was able to find the island, it was actually very simple. He could easily find it by relying on the Vivre card that Shanks had given him before. With the addition of Hawkeye, Ben Beckman had a bolder idea regarding how to further annoy Kaido. Whitebeard, Rayleigh, these former powers never feared and all dared to take risks, accepting Ben Beckman's proposal directly. Only danger can bring more wealth. Whitebeard laughed. Hee hee. Rayleigh also chuckled. This reminds me of the old days, when adventures used to make my blood boil. I haven't felt like this in a long time. Mihawk, on the other hand, had a serious expression all the time and didn't relax at all, so everyone took it as a given. In the presence of these figures, he maintained a neutral expression. The atmosphere was tense for about 3 days of planning and some celebration. On the third day, just before the new Four Emperors Alliance took action on the islands around Wano, news shook the world. Whitebeard's 1st Division commander, Portgas D. Ace, was found and captured by Admiral Akamu. The Marines issued an arrogant statement about his execution date. The sea would once again be in chaos. Chapter 131, News Spreads, 4, Onigashima Jigen's laboratory. You really like causing chaos. Hancock said, dressed as a maid and blushing slightly with embarrassment. She couldn't believe what she was reading and seeing in this laboratory. Today was a happy day for Jigen, as he had successfully deceived the Marines. This world cannot be kept in peace, otherwise some people would become arrogant. Jigen smiled, paying no attention to Hancock. He was focused on his research. No doubt this will keep the world government busy for a while, giving you beast pirates enough time to recover and regroup from the battle in Impel Down. Hancock said. Although it's not a surprising plan, coming from you makes it a bit terrifying. Hancock added. For some reason, Hancock felt a bit excited inside. With this, that little group pretending to play alliances will also be busy. They might even fall into discord among themselves and eventually separate. Jigen enjoyed the situation. He had anticipated a plan like this from the cunning Akagami. And to think that the cause of all this is calmly in a laboratory. Hancock rolled her eyes. Ha ha ha, you would be surprised by everything I know about this world. Jigen said without looking at Hancock. By the way, it's time for you to leave, because you're still here. Jigen said. Upon hearing this, the beautiful face of Hancock froze. Yes, why was she still here? Why did she enjoy chatting with this bastard? And on top of that, he complains and kicks her out. You. A beautiful woman like me is accompanying you and you say that? Hancock became furious. A beautiful woman? I already have 2 beautiful women, one annoying and irritable, and the other as gentle as no one else, so your beauty doesn't surprise me much. Jigen casually commented on Hancock's statement. Hancock had never been so angry with a man before. Humphrey, a more beautiful woman than me has not been born yet. Hancock arrogantly tossed her hair, opened the magical door she had obtained through her cooperation with Jigen, and left Onigashima. What a narcissistic woman. Jigen commented with amusement. Mary Edoi's Shanks stood behind a large door with a dignified look. All of his plans had been frustrated, which put him in a bad mood. If he didn't consider himself a cautious person, he would have gone directly to confront that natural disaster. Upon hearing the order that he could enter, Shanks stopped thinking about it and entered. With a serious look, Shanks didn't say any nonsense or greetings. I had managed to establish an alliance with Whitebeard. What were you thinking when declaring a war so openly against Whitebeard pirates when the real enemy is someone much more dangerous? Shanks appeared furious. The 5 elders didn't respond, but they gave Shanks a look to watch his words. These are your orders. You must know that these orders are unquestionable. The blonde elder said, equally confused as Shanks. They had underestimated their lord's hatred for the D. Upon hearing this, Shanks's eyes widened, understanding everything. So, it's like that. Now that such an order has been given, it's difficult to change the Gorosei's mind. Knowing Whitebeard, he will fight to the death to rescue Ace. If they really go to war, the casualties will be astronomical, considering the technologies of the scientific disaster on the battlefield. Shanks said as he pondered. With this, a joint trade on Wano will be impossible for at least a few more years. I must admit that they really have you. Shanks almost mocked the world government. If that's why you came, you can leave now. The five elders were not in the mood to highlight the same topic of conversation they had a few days ago. I just hope you really know what you're doing, setting aside a greater threat for such a trivial matter. Shanks withdrew, leaving these words behind. Undoubtedly, this was the shortest visit he has made to Mary Ejoice. However, Shanks is unaware of the magnitude of those who bear this surname, nor the deep hatred they share with the world government over the years. Onigashima today was a happy day for Kaido. Because the world would plunge into chaos once again. Wuro, this sea is so splendid when it's engulfed in chaos, it deserves a toast. Big Mom had returned to Whole Cake through her new portal due to some unfinished business. But this didn't stop Kaido from celebrating. This will allow us to recover a bit in terms of production and then return to the stage. King also joined in the toast. Queen was in Uda attending to some matters, so he couldn't be present. Where's Jigen? Kaido asked after taking a sip of sake. He's in the laboratory. That guy needs to relax from time to time. Usopp commented vaguely. Well, considering he has a wife, maybe he relaxes more comfortably than you do. Page 1 couldn't help but comment. What did you say, Page 1? Do you want to fight? Usopp, who had perfectly understood his words, jumped up embarrassed. Although I have to say that Ulti has been in a better mood lately. I really admire Jigen for being able to tame such a fierce woman. Sasaki was a little envious. King observed this interaction with a blank expression, although secretly he was also a bit envious. He never planned on finding a woman, but seeing the affectionate relationship between Ulti and Jigen, to the point where she even brings him a bento to the laboratory, King couldn't help but secretly yearn for this kind of attention from a woman. Black Maria quickly jumped in to tease King, not letting his pensive expression go unnoticed. The atmosphere was joyful, something that didn't happen very often. In the laboratory, Jigen continued to investigate Ace's blood. If it weren't for his concern to ensure an excellent food supply to replenish his blood, Ace could have died. While he was immersed in his work, a voice interrupted him from outside the laboratory. Jigen-sama, there's a pirate outside demanding to see you. She's causing trouble and goes by the name of Jewelry Bonnie. Upon hearing this, Jigen's attention was completely captured by the subordinate who came to report. Chapter 132, Jewelry Bonnie Boney. Jigen was surprised by this. In the most unpredictable scenarios, he had never imagined a visit from Bonnie. Jigen dropped everything he was doing and walked out the door of his laboratory. He was curious about why this girl wanted to see him. Jigen, being a good host of a system, naturally kept up with the current events of One Piece, so when he saw the story of Bonnie and her adoptive father Kuma, he couldn't help but have mixed feelings. Outside, Bonnie was with her crew. They were right at the entrance of Onigashima. Kaido was also notified, but he was too busy dealing with the time room to pay attention to a girl who wanted an audience with Jigen. However, King was keeping an eye on them the whole time. How long does she plan on making us wait? Bonnie said with extreme annoyance. However, when she saw a figure in the distance approaching her, a fierce smile appeared on her face. So you're the rumored scientific disaster, yet I don't see anything special about you. Bonnie's attitude said a lot about her personality. But Jigen was already aware of this. My name is Jigen. I wonder what a pirate from the worst generation wants with me, even daring to come to the New World. Yes, Bonnie went through wind and tide to reach the New World, to have an audience with Jigen. Above her adventure was her father, and this was the topic of conversation. I want to make a deal with you. Bonnie said in a serious tone. Let me guess, you want me to help you with something. Jigen interrupted her with a playful look. Bonnie narrowed her eyes suspiciously. But she didn't deny it. It's a private matter, so I prefer there are no third parties. Bonnie looked up at the sky, where a kind of pterodactyl was flying overhead. Jigen smiled bitterly, thinking that this girl was too much. She came to Four Emperors territory so boldly and now she doesn't want to be monitored. However, Jigen agreed. He waved his hand at King, and took Bonnie through his personal arbitrary door. Laboratory, are you more comfortable now? Jigen asked ironically. Bonnie nodded. I'll get straight to the point. I want you to save my father. Bonnie took the initiative to speak. Your father? Jigen played dumb. My father is Bartholomew Kuma, a 7 warlords of the seas of the Marines. Bonnie stared at Jigen, waiting to see if he would be surprised. However, Jigen showed no sign of surprise, indicating that he either wasn't interested or already knew this information. Many people come asking for help, but without something in return, it's hard to take them seriously. Upon hearing this, Bonnie's face flushed with anger. I heard that you are very lustful, so if you help me, I will be yours. Bonnie put on an embarrassed look that he had been practicing in front of the mirror for days. After these words, the atmosphere fell silent. It wasn't until Jigen's thunderous laughter was heard that Bonnie reacted. Why are you laughing? Bonnie roared. Sorry, it's just that you're too funny. Look at you, at only 10 years old, you know how to seduce a man. Jigen said playfully. This statement put Bonnie on guard. He never expected this man to know his age, or worse, to see through his devil fruit power. Seeing Bonnie tense up, Jigen waved his hands. Don't get nervous, if I wanted to harm you, I wouldn't have waited until now, don't you think? Bonnie relaxed a little, but still didn't let her guard down completely. Jigen went for a tea set and sat in front of the girl. Do you want to hear a story, Jewelry Bonnie? Jigen acted like an old man who liked to tell stories. Bonnie almost got irritated hearing this. She didn't come here to listen to stories, but if she wanted to save her father, she had to get close to this mad scientist. So reluctantly, she nodded. This is the story of a boy who dreamed of being like Joy Boy. When she heard this first part, Bonnie's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. However, Jigen didn't wait for her reaction. After all, this story had many ups and downs. If he stopped at each one of them, they would never finish. Jigen spent almost an hour telling the story of Kuma. By this point, Bonnie was devastated. She had even undone her usual transformation, showing her childlike stature, while crying and leaning on Jigen. Jigen couldn't help but stroke her head. After all, he wasn't so inhumane as to not comfort a girl torn apart in tears. Damn world government, damn Marines, damn Vegapunk, damn Gorosei. Bonnie cursed everyone who had made her father and mother suffer respectively. You are a fortunate girl, at least you had the love of your parents. Jigen said melancholically as he remembered his past on Earth. Bonnie felt a little better with Jigen's warm words. It's true, she received her mother's love before she died. And even Kuma, who wasn't obligated to take care of her, made such a deal with the world government for her well-being. I imagine your request is to save your father after finding out that he is part of the 7 warlords of the sea system and is considered a pacifista. But let me tell you, Vegapunk is not as bad as he seems. It's just that like every scientist who wants to live until their last second of life, he is on the side of the faction that has ruled for 800 years. It's natural to work for them. Bonnie lifted her little head and paid attention to Jigen's words. Chapter 133, New Technology. Don't hate that old man, it's thanks to him that the research has been delayed and your father still maintains his personality. Jigen playfully rubbed Bonnie's nose. She silently nodded. She was in a vulnerable state, so she believed Jigen's words. Well, we've been chatting for too long, it might raise suspicions. Jigen picked up Bonnie. Even while reading the manga, he wanted to go after Bonnie and carry her. He had always been fond of children, especially his younger sister, who he left at the same age as Bonnie. Kid, here's my deal. I can restore your father's humanity, but only if he agrees, and in return, you have to be my test subject for about a month. Jigen laid out his conditions. An opportunity to study noble blood had came to him so suddenly, how could he let it pass? Another interesting fact is that the Senzubans cannot restore humanity to someone who has lost most of their humanity. It was still possible to regenerate broken limbs, but for someone who was almost 100% converted into a cyborg. Even these enhanced Senzubans were unable to restore humanity to someone like that. This wasn't just the case with Kuma. It also happened with Queen, who was concerned about regaining his body by eating some Senzu beans. However, Jigen cleared up his doubts. For someone like Queen, the Senzubans only restored his spirit, haki, and stamina. But he couldn't remember his old physical body. And Kuma had also realized this a long time ago. Do you want to study my blood? Bonnie asked with her still childlike voice twisting in Jigen's arms, not letting her escape. You have noble blood, sweetheart. Although it may be an aberration to you, for me, it's a long and extensive project of work. Jigen smiled with excitement and put Bonnie down. I'm currently busy, but in about 5 days, I'll be in Amazon Lily for some matters. If you manage to reach the famous Women's Island, I'll take you to see your father. Jigen was currently on the verge of unleashing 50% of Ace's blood power, and then inducing it into a clone soldier. He couldn't abandon this success for Bonnie, so he proposed this option to her. Although he doubted that Kuma would accept the treatment due to his personality, he wanted Bonnie to see him. As long as Kuma is not completely dead to the world government and has settled his debt, Kuma would not break his promise. This is the attitude of a man. But at least Jigen wanted Bonnie to see him, so that she would agree to experiment with her blood. Take this. Jigen gave Bonnie a book as a gift. In it were illustrations of her mother, and even of a young Kuma. It was something he knew this girl would treasure. After bidding a grieving Bonnie farewell, Jigen returned to his laboratory along the path. However, he was intercepted by Kaido. Hey! Captain, why are you here? Just in time. This time I have a new invention. Go and call someone, I'm going to put on a show. When Kaido heard the words, he immediately forgot about the billion Baileys that Big Mom had liquidated him and filled with joy. He said, will the new technology arrive so soon? It has only been a few days since they were handed all the Kairoseki captured in Impel Down, and he did not expect Jigen to develop the new technology so quickly. Kid, your efficiency is truly impressive. Kaido stopped babbling and hurriedly went to greet everyone to prepare for the meeting. At the same time, he sent a report to Whole Cake Island as agreed upon in the alliance between the Beast Pirates and the Big Mom Pirates. As for the Don Quixote family, who were currently located on an island that Kaido offered them, they were not qualified yet. They will see the new technology on the battlefield. It was almost noon, and it was time for afternoon tea. Big Mom was enjoying her afternoon tea in a good mood. When she suddenly saw King using the door to enter her main hall, her face immediately sank. Kaido, you bastard, why do you keep sending your personnel so brazenly? Can't you call me? We made an agreement that we cannot use any doors indiscriminately to go to each other's sites, and we have to notify in advance. Furthermore, the last thing I like is someone interrupting my afternoon tea. Big Mom looked at King with extreme annoyance. Kaido-san asked me to inform you that a new technology will be showcased this afternoon at Onigashima. Jigen's new technology is already available. Big Mom was stunned for a moment, as all her children and guests at the afternoon tea opened their eyes in disbelief. Chapter 134, Unexpected Visit. 1. The sudden arrival of King originally annoyed Big Mom. Both agreed that they couldn't use any doors to casually enter each other's territory, otherwise, wouldn't it be a disaster? However, after King mentioned that Jigen had developed a new technology, she was astonished along with her family. The new technology has been launched. This is too fast. As expected of that guy. Everyone was surprised by Jigen's efficiency. After receiving an affirmative answer from King, the annoyance on Big Mom's face disappeared and she laughed heartily. Ha ha ha, mama, mama. Jigen always brings joy to people. What has he developed this time? She couldn't wait to find out what Jigen has invented and what kind of technology it would be. King naturally doesn't know, so he impatiently said. Kaido-san is waiting for you along with everyone else. Big Mom didn't ask any further questions. She quickly got up and didn't even drink her favorite afternoon tea. She led Kitakure and her other children through her new door to the banquet hall in Onigashima. On the other hand, Jack contacted Doflamingo through the Den Mushi. From his new headquarters island, Doflamingo frowned upon seeing the call. They had just come out of a large-scale battle in Impel Down. Is Kaido contacting him again? Unsatisfied with the dissatisfaction, Doflamingo had no choice but to answer. Jack's voice came from the other side. Joker, bring your ass to Onigashima, Jigen-sama will show his new invention. Doflamingo was stunned for a moment before showing his characteristic smile. It's too fast, isn't it? He had an incredible look. What is this concept? It's fine, I'll be there in a few minutes. Doflamingo couldn't be more excited. The previous air cannon allowed him to easily bombard a Kanyu. What will the technology be this time? He eagerly awaits it. Not daring to be careless, Doflamingo immediately called his family and told them. Hurry up. Gather everyone, we're going to have some fun in Onigashima again. After hearing the words, his surrounding family members were initially surprised, and then they all showed the same enthusiasm as their king. As the hours passed, all the guests arrived at the banquet hall in the castle. Everyone's eyes were unanimous. Looking at Jigen on the stage, their eyes flickered and they shouted loudly, eagerly awaiting the announcement of the new technology. Everyone was discussing, and the more they discussed, the more boisterous they became, and everyone was excited with their own speculations. Jigen on the stage was somewhat astonished. These people are so excited that no one can make a decision on their own. However, there are also some who are getting closer to it. Jigen's hand pressed down on the stage. Everyone, please be silent. The people below suddenly fell silent, not making a sound, only their eyes gleaming with anticipation, and they were discussing their mood at that moment. Jigen is very satisfied with this kind of atmosphere. It must be said that the feeling of prestige is really good. Just as he was about to announce this new invention, a low laughter suddenly rang out from the banquet hall. He. The laughter had a hint of mockery and a kind of arrogance, and when you hear it, people know that this is a strong man. In the banquet hall, everyone couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. They didn't understand where the laughter was coming from, so they couldn't help but look around. In the dome of the banquet hall, a figure dressed in a similar yellow robe was suspended. The attire is not a signal. What worries people the most is the half of a helm attached to the top of his head. The legendary pirate, Golden Lion Shiki. Golden Lion Shiki. Kaido and Big Mom's eyes slightly narrowed and then turned cruel. Many people who knew Golden Lion also exclaimed. Is this the great pirate who was as famous as Roger back then? Why did this legendary pirate appear here? What is he doing here? Everyone was surprised by his sudden arrival. Even Jigen on the stage couldn't help but be surprised. This turn of events was truly entertaining. Did this guy also escape from Impel Down? Wrong. Jigen shook his head. He remembered that when he went to the underwater prison before, he didn't see Golden Lion anywhere. Obviously, Golden Lion did not meet Luffy in this timeline. However, Jigen is also interested. Why is he here? Alone? Jigen is not too worried about his safety. Currently, even though he cannot defeat him without revealing his hidden cards, he can perfectly defend himself. And thus prevent his secret experiments from being exposed. Moreover, Kaido and Big Mom were here. He really didn't know where this guy got the courage to act so recklessly in Kaido's territory. In the dome of the banquet hall, Shiki saw everyone looking at him. Ignoring the eyes of those little people, he looked at two specific people. Kaido, Linlin, long time no see. This is me, an old friend came to see you today. Kaido said directly. Shiki, how can we believe your nonsense? Big Mom also sneered a little. Shiki couldn't help but look disdainful. If it weren't for those two bastards Sengoku and Garp joining forces, how could I have lost? When Roger turned himself in that year, the Marines announced that Roger would be publicly executed. Shiki became furious when he heard this. He believed that the strong man who admitted his crimes should not fall in this way, so he went straight to the Marine headquarters alone to cause a scene. With the cooperation of Sengoku and Garp, the two sides fought for 3 days and 3 nights, and finally ended with Golden Lion being escorted to Impel Down. Chapter 135, Unexpected Visit, 2. The main reason why Kaido and Big Mom were hostile when they met Shiki was mainly because after the dissolution of the Rocks Pirates, Kaido and Big Mom secretly formed an alliance, while Shiki had always been with Whitebeard at first, until the two gradually formed their own power and scale. Kaido bluntly said. Shiki, stop talking nonsense, we all know each other, tell me, what is the purpose of your visit? Shiki laughed, took out the Senzubans and the Universal Capsule from his arms, and solemnly said. I heard that these two things came from you, Kaido. Kaido and Big Mom immediately knew the reason for this guy's visit. Seeing that Kaido and Big Mom did not respond, Shiki didn't care, he smiled and said. I thought this was too valuable and resisted using it until I heard that these things came from your hands, so I just came to see. I didn't expect it to come from you, the Beast Pirates. The fourth disaster, the scientific disaster, Kaido, you have found a good talent. These things are simply artifacts that will allow me to dominate the world. Shiki's face showed a fierce light. At that moment, his vigorous ambition was vividly displayed. Under everyone's attention, he took the Senzu bean. Now that the source of this has been found, Shiki doesn't have to worry about it disappearing after he eats it. Under the burst of green light, Shiki's aged body began to recover and the countless scars began to disappear. Most importantly was the helm above his head. Shiki showed no pain, but laughed extraordinarily loud, because the wound on his head healed and even his baldness was cured. All wounds were healed under the healing of the Senzu bean. This made the legendary pirate Golden Lion feel an unprecedented physical and mental comfort. It's been over 20 years, more than 20 years, and I haven't felt this light in my body in a long time. Amazing. Impressive. Shiki looked up at the sky and laughed. The person who can invent these things is truly amazing. After finishing his laughter, he couldn't help but look down. Let me see who the scientific disaster is. Shiki glanced at Jigen. It's you, isn't it? It's truly surprising. I didn't expect the infamous scientific disaster to be so young. Jigen is not too surprised that this character can recognize him at a glance. After all, he is now standing in the cabin and occupies the appropriate position throughout the banquet hall. Even a fool would suspect it. In the void, Shiki recovered from all his injuries at that moment, which also made him swell to the extreme, allowing him to return to his previous position of power on par with Roger. I used to think that sailors were the most important. In the battle with Roger, Roger was at the end of the road and the flying pirate airships of the Golden Lion took him to a dead end. While Roger refused to join the Golden Lion, he would surely die in that battle. A sudden storm ruined the situation. Roger also escaped this storm because he can see the sky, Know in advance the arrival of this storm, and take precautions. That is to say, in this battle, Shiki left a shadow to know how important a powerful navigator is. But now I've changed my mind, I think it's best to have a great scientist like you. Jigen. How about it? Scientific disaster, what if you join me? I have more brains than those two old men. You can set whatever conditions you want, I'm willing to give it to you. Shiki shamelessly invited Jigen to join his pirate group. This made Kaido immediately roar. Shiki, don't go too far. Although Kaido had confidence in Jigen, he couldn't allow them to disrespect him like this. It can be said that for Kaido, Jigen is now his inverse scale, and anyone who wants to do something to him must accept his anger. Kaido said with a deep voice, his tone full of anger, "You're not even 4 emperors at this moment, so you still want to give security to Jigen? It's really a joke." After he finished speaking, his eyes suddenly became sharp and fierce, and at the same time, the aura of a tyrant surged from his body. Kaido unleashed his conqueror's haki without any scruples. Not only Kaido, but Big Mom who was by his side couldn't help but let out her fighting spirit. Jigen's mouth twisted in the cabin. Was there a need to act so savagely? Because they don't sit down and drink and toast to their reunion. After all, they were crewmates. Without hesitation, Shiki laughed. "Kaido, you used to call me brother, so you can keep calling me that now." Shiki also released his conqueror's haki. The 3 strands of Conqueror's haki suddenly collided with each other, and the unique black thunder of Conqueror also appeared, constantly intertwining and colliding with each other in the hallway. However, the 2 sides only made contact, and Shiki's Conqueror's haki couldn't hold on anymore and was directly crushed by Kaido and Big Mom's haki. Shiki was shaken by the impact and flew upside down a distance. Immediately, he showed a surprised expression. "Kaido, when did your strength become much stronger?" The 3 haki were supposed to disperse among themselves, not to suppress it and even send it flying. Kaido and Big Mom smiled proudly upon hearing this. Looking at Shiki as if he were a frog at the bottom of a well,